Hey, what is going on, everyone? It's me, Mr. Mario, and welcome back to another episode of Mario's Minute. For those who do not know, this is a podcast I do here. This is the second podcast. My main one, Mod Chat, is where it is a little more structured and such, and where I come on there and I kind of talk about some new things in the world of video game modding, video game console modding, new developments, things that I find interesting, mixing in a little bit of show and tell as well, just to, have some fun with everything there. However, this here is not going to be that. This here is Mario's Minute, where it's completely different, where I kind of just come on here and talk about whatever the hell I want to with you all. Sometimes I have a guest on, sometimes I don't, but really it's just something where I kind of have a little bit of a personal outlet, talk with you all, and one of those things where it's not like it does gangbusters, but I do appreciate the people who love and tune in and come here every month for it, because it seems like the people who like this show really, really like it. I have fun doing it, so it works out well enough. Either way, if you want to listen to more of Mario's Minute, you can check it out on your favorite podcasting app, host, podcasting provider, or what have you. Simply look up Mario's Minute on there, and you should hopefully be able to find it. It's not available on all of them, but it's available on most of them. Otherwise, you can also check it out in the main video visual form here on the Mr. Mario 2011 YouTube, Rumble, and Odyssey channels. There's not too much going on there. There's just a channel background art with a cool looking visualizer. At least I think it's cool looking, but if you want to jump into the conversation, the comments are always open there. Either way, this is Mario's Minute, where this here, I'm going to be having a guest on this episode. I haven't been able to do that the last few months, but was finally able to make it happen for the April 2024 episode. So without further ado, as I always ask here to my guest, who the hell are you?
Hi, I am Harcroft, a member of the original Xbox kind of gaming and modding community.
And hey, Harcroft, thank you very much for joining up. It's been awesome talking to you here.
Yeah, it's been, as you called it, the green room talk has been nice, just warming up and having a nice friendly chat.
Yes, yeah, because him and I have been talking about an hour beforehand, and a mix of it was a little bit of a mix of getting tech issues ironed out, but also, of course, kind of figuring out everything here too. Yeah,
Discord being Discord.
Yeah, it was essentially that when it came down to it was Discord being Discord. But either way, I guess kind of jumping into this here for people who might not know, I guess what would you be known for online? How do you want people to know you in that regard? How do we know each other?
I would say mostly from the original Xbox DLC archival project, where I've been, since it was considered piracy back then, I've been pirating and then just archiving original Xbox DLC privately since 2004, 2005, and then publicly since 2006.
Okay.
The biggest project I would be part of, I would say.
Okay. And I know it's pretty much still the Xbox Live Arcade, the original Xbox Live Arcade, many of the DLC and tile updates on there. It's been a big collaborative effort, like a lot of donations and all that, in terms of like content. But from what I've seen, I mean, that's been you heading a lot of that for original Xbox owners and content, right? I
would agree with that. There were people certainly before me who were just pirating and archiving content and getting it shared out to the rest of the internet. And I'm sure there will be people after me, but I've been the one kind of carrying it for the longest period of time.
Sure.
Well, and like you said, it's been a very collaborative thing because I can't do this alone. We've had console dumps from hundreds of people and, hundreds and hundreds of consoles that have been archived.
For sure. Yeah, I know at least I had seen, and it's been a few years that we've known each other now, because I think you and I first really started talking during some of the Insignia testing, and it was closed beta. But I remember with that, I had seen your name float around. I really didn't try any of the DLC or anything at that point. However, I know you had jumped in, and there was a lot of, we were testing then, I want to say, but we also had a lot of talks about like the tile updates and kind of like re-signing content and such and how that works on the system.
Yeah, essentially, when Microsoft released demo discs, they have a at some point, I guess around official Xbox Magazine 21, or maybe it was 19. It was somewhere around there. They had this menu system called CDX that they use for kiosks and demo discs, that kind of stuff. Yes. And on some discs, they gave us content. But that way of signing and installing the content, you can also use that to sign content that was only from Xbox Live, not just disc-based content. So when I figured that out in 2006 with Amy Girl, I kind of just went ham trying to get every piece of content we could. Mm-hmm. And that's, I think, helped with Insignia for sure, with compatibility, especially with games like, Halo Halo 2 now,
Yes.
Battlefront 2, like any game that has title updates, it's really important we get those. And I thankfully have gotten a fair amount of them over the last 18 or whatever years.
Mm-hmm.
I can give you numbers if you like of what we know exists. There could be more beyond that and what we have, if that's interesting.
No, sure, I'm down. It sounds interesting on here because I know with the tile updates and everything, it's been. I covered this here somewhat recently, but I was surprised and pleasantly surprised that Insignia has the pretty nice tile update and everything support on there too. I know before it went public beta, I know they had figured out a way of getting title update versions matching, so it's like one person can run if people are running like a base version of a game and then others are running like the 1.1 version of the game, they'll only connect to game versions of the same version, which I think is also nice because it's like you don't have to, unlike the original Xbox Live where you had to run the latest build on Insignia, you don't have to do that, but now just like having the tile updates integrated and served on there just makes it so much easier, so you don't have to grab one of those like CDX installers or like get the content yourself or anything. As long as it was like freely available, it's on there, which is really nice.
There's a couple things in there. There's only 2 games they managed to separate people, or I call it segregating the different updates. So Crimson Skies and Mech Assault 1 both had ways in the executable to tell the service, hey, this person's on this update. Don't some kind of flag that Libby for Insignia was able to separate or segregate those 2 sets of players. That's only true for those 2 games though.
Okay.
So Mech Assault and Crimson Skies, games that will just crash you out if you try to it'll crash either the host or the client out if you try to connect with different versions of the game or different updates of the game. The other games, we don't really have that much luck. So Star Wars Battlefront 2 is a big issue where people couldn't connect to each other because one person had the DLC or one person had an update. And what's worse for Battlefront 2 is there's the Platinum Hits for Star Wars Battlefront 2.
There is, yeah.
That has a built-in update. So that person can't remove the update to connect to people who don't have the update installed.
Mm-hmm.
So them being able to host title updates is a whole new level of compatibility and fixing a lot of issues.
Mm-hmm.
And that comes with its own issues of people using bad rips that can't be updated cleanly. And really the support forum is good about having people like that. It's a huge step forward, and it's a very positive thing. I'm happy that they've got that working.
For sure. There's been several like key issues I've seen just when I like reply to comments on my Insignia videos and stuff, where typically like if people say, hey, I can't do this, or really just like I'm trying to connect to live and then it kicks me back to the dashboard or does this other thing. Usually from my more limited experience on there, the answer I give them, which seems to work, is it's just a bad rip, so you need to re-rip it on there. I think one of my favorite things I'd heard from someone at one point was like, people have had 20 years to get good rips of games, so having a bad rip isn't an excuse.
That's fair. That's a good comment. And I get some places you cannot buy those games, so there's, wear that hat, let's just say, and I don't want to go too deep into that.
Sure.
But numbers, I got some numbers for you.
Yes.
So these are just numbers that we know. So there could be games that we don't know have DLC or updates that we just don't know about. 109 games have DLC.
Mm-hmm.
There are 678 total. That includes some production testing and some other stuff that doesn't really matter, but 678 is our number. We have 409 archived and 268 DLCs missing.
Okay.
So that being said, I think we're in a good spot even with those 200 some odd missing DLCs for original Xbox, because there's only one game, in my opinion, that really matters at this point. Almost all missing DLC is sports rosters, duplicates of the same DLC for a different region or a different language.
Mm-hmm.
Or essentially just duplicates. That's the best way to put it. But the one game we're still missing all the DLC for, which is unique, is Shikigami no Shiro 2 or Castle Shikigami 2, which was only released in Japan.
Okay.
So Japanese Xboxes with DLC and any live any history of being on live are very rare these days. So that's kind of my white whale when it comes to DLC.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Have numbers for updates as well. 90 total games have title updates. There are 274 total. We have 152 of those archived and 122 missing.
Oh, wow.
A lot of those are also in a good spot because we have the final update for the vast majority of games. So if we're missing an earlier update, it would be nice to have for completionist's sake. But if you have the last update of a game, you have what really matters for online compatibility on Insignia or any other future Xbox Live system.
That is nice. Yeah. So I know with the White Whale one you were talking about, I personally haven't even heard of that game there, but I'm just thinking the other issue with that too, and it's not necessarily a issue per se. It's more just, it's a major difficulty, I guess. But in regards to reaching out to the Japanese original Xbox owners and kind of like getting that part of the world, because I feel like a lot of like the original Xbox community is very English heavy and English based on there. So you run into these things where there's like big developments or, archival projects or just content that's available in other parts of the world for other scenes. Like it could be in China, it could be in Japan, it could be in Latin America.
China.
What?
Xbox was not released in China. It was released in Taiwan, but not in China. It was just, I couldn't nowhere else exactly, but it was not actually released in China. Xbox.
And I should clarify, I was thinking more like because I was thinking of like other consoles. I was thinking like the Xbox 360, for example, where there was like really crazy like homebrew mod developments that were being done in China. The problem is a lot of that, many people who really even heavy into that don't know too much about them, just because it was all on Chinese forums and such, all in Chinese language, and there just wasn't that same penetration to get to it there. So we have the same thing, I know, with not necessarily with content, but I know with RGH3 for the Xbox 360, where the original instruction set has a certain way of doing it. And then there's been other methods of recommending how to install it that a lot of them have come from Spanish-speaking countries on there. But the thing is, the main people who developed it, aside from like 15432, he's Russian, but then the other people, are mostly English-speaking, and they just really don't have Spanish-speaking connection in that regard. Like if one of the people on the development team was like someone who is more well-known in the world there, then a lot of that could probably be ironed out and kind of figured out. But unfortunately, it's just, you have stuff that's literally lost in translation.
If you do need a better translating site, I've been finding that DeepL is far better than Google Translate, especially for Japanese. Worth a look.
I actually haven't heard of that.
At deepl.com or .org. Just DeepL and you'll find it.
Okay.
DeepL.com. Yeah.
Okay. Good
really
to know.
Good. I can say for Japan, I've been working hard to get the awareness up, and I've had a bit of inroads with the Steel Battalion community because there's a big following for Steel Battalion still in Japan. There is worldwide, but there's a separate kind of group in Japan.
Really? I did not know about that at all.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. They play very differently than the other worldwide players. So there's kind of a different set of house rules, let's say.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't really see a ton of crossover, but there is a little bit. So I was told probably in November that they were still using hot swapping as a method for modding in Japan, and I'm like, okay, this has to stop.
Are you serious?
Yeah, still even today, it's not popular, I would say, but it's still being done. So I made it my mission to help get soft modding games out to Japan, and I don't know if you know, but it's soft mod exploit games. It's been very hard because the games that you can use to soft mod an Xbox in Japan were Splinter Cell and Mech Assault, but they weren't the Japanese release. They were a Hong Kong international release or something like some weird other copy. But what most people didn't know, and I wasn't the first person to discover this, but I'm the first person to really capitalize on it, was Metal Arm's Glitch in the System was a region 3 game, which is North America plus Asia and Japan.
Yeah.
So I was buying up every loose copy of that I could find and shipping it off to people in the Steel Battalion community in Japan so they could soft mod their Xboxes.
Okay.
The first one I did, I sent a guy a memory unit, a communicator, Raspberry Pi, because he couldn't get those in Japan at the time. And Metal Arms. I've gone through 3 or 4 copies at least, and I still have one here waiting to go. But as you well know, we don't need that anymore. Now we have Endgame.
Yeah, now we have Endgame. So as long as the hardest part is getting a flash drive recognized on the Xbox, and then once you're able to do that successfully, the rest of it's pie.
Yeah, it's been pretty good. So with my little Xbox preservation Discord, I've made a list of from Amazon anyway, of the USB drives that people have confirmed are working for original Xbox. And I've ordered a few, and the Amazons somehow lost some of them from my US trips, so I will get more. But the idea is to get a handful and try to, get them shipped off to Japan or wherever people need them, preloaded with an Endgame exploit. Even if it's just the stock exploit with Lithium X dashboard, because that will at least let you put an FTP server up on the Xbox and let you dump all your content out.
Yes. Yeah. So at least better than nothing. And then you have like a decent entry point there because really you just, launch it from the memory section of the dashboard and you're good. You don't even have to worry about having a working DVD drive, which is really nice.
It's amazing. So for those who don't know, Shutterbug's the person who discovered it.
Yes.
Doom's the person who kind of built it up, and Xbox 7887 was there to help with some testing.
That's awesome. So a stellar
really
team
cool
there
exploit.
all the way.
We love that.
Yes. Yeah. No, then once people started integrating it into their installers, I'm like, okay, yep, this is what we've been waiting for. This here is Pi.
I spent an entire day porting XCAT, not porting it, but like signing XCAT and dumping it in all the various softmod installers, like all the different exploits.
Yeah.
And then like 3 days later, Endgame drops. So I was like, oh, this is a waste of time. But I mean, at least we got something far better than what I was doing.
Yeah, and at least you got you got the experience at least in like the practice of doing it.
No, it was just a slog. I had done that a million times before. It was just trying to get all the exploits together.
I was trying to be positive about it.
Any negative from that is far outweighed by just having Endgame as a whole.
That is true. Yeah.
So, the plug, if you have an original Xbox that has not been archived and you think it might have any DLC or any updates or anything like that on it, please get in contact. I'm on Twitter and a bunch of different Xbox Discords and Reddit and just all over the internet, really. And even if you don't reach me, you don't want to talk to me, there are multiple people who will help you and who want to help out getting all this archiving done. This is a huge community effort at this point.
Absolutely. And I mean, a lot of that is, you're saying plug here, but another nice benefit of that is, thanks to XCAT, that makes things a lot easier.
Yeah, I am not a coder. I'm terrible at it. I have tried it a few times, and it's not just that. I hate doing it. So when somebody comes to me and says, hey, I'd like to help you with this, I'm like, yes, how can I help you help me? Like anything I can do to get the help. So Crunchbite started building it, and it's Xbox 7887 isn't listed as a dev, but he is totally a dev. He did a lot of work on it.
Okay.
He doesn't care what credit, but I believe, he deserves credit for all his hard work.
For sure.
So what XCAT will do, there is a simple short link for it. If you go to consolemods.org/XCAT, that will actually link you to the proper XCAT page. Mm-hmm. And it's just a simple tool to let you scan. It will scan your hard drive for all files related to DLC, old mod packs, apps, anything scene related really, or Xbox Live related, and we'll hash those, compare them to a database we have of every file that's been scanned previously, and it'll only upload the files that it has never seen before. And there are certain folders we specifically avoid. If someone runs it on a dev unit, for example, or debug unit that they're actively developing software, we avoid that folder so you don't accidentally upload your private project.
Fair.
We block XBMC thumbnails and stuff like that because like there's a privacy aspect there. We not only we shouldn't see your private thumbnails from XBMC from photos or whatever. We also kind of don't want to. It's not something we need access to.
Fair. Yeah.
And the easiest way to do it, if your console's modded, is just get the executable. You can get it from, I believe it's on xboxscene.info. It's on digix.net. It's fairly easy to find. There's lots of links out there to get it. And if you don't have it, just ask anyone in the Xbox community. They'll help you get it.
Sure.
The whole package has an endgame exploit package already ready to go. It also has an executable you can run off of your modding console's hard drive. Mm-hmm. And just let it go. Currently, we don't have any bug fixes because it was a 1.0 release and the lead dev Crunchbite was very busy at the time of release. He had to kind of get it out the door. There are a few bugs. So after you upload a lot of small files, it will have a pause between the upload of 50 or 100 files and then the next scan. Mm-hmm. So if you find it's taking too long, just restart it every 10, 15 minutes, half an hour, whatever you feel comfortable with, and you won't lose any time uploading. It will still rescan those files, but the scanning is the shortest part of the process. The uploading is the longest part.
Yes. Yeah. So I personally end up running it on one of my systems and went through that whole process. And aside from, just having like reboot and like go through, the whole upload thing, which you and I talked about before, it's a breeze. You just find a way to launch the executable, which is possible on any type of system now. And then you hit the A button, a couple times. And as long as you agree, then you're just uploading. So I've even told people, I've said, if you're going to use it, just, hook it up to your network, fire it up, just hit A few times, and then leave your system on overnight.
That's basically it. I have a friend in Oregon who's dumped something like 50. He works with a game store where he'll pick up all the broken Xboxes and repair them, and he gets half of the working ones or something like that.
Okay.
He's done about 50 of a batch of 100 so far.
Wow.
Unfortunately, we haven't found anything new DLC-wise, but I didn't expect to find anything until we started scanning more PAL region or European, Australian region Xboxes and more Japanese Xboxes. We'll find something eventually.
Because it seems like the North American stuff it's not like it's complete, but it's pretty well tapped. Like it's pretty secure at this point for most of it.
Yeah, there's not a whole lot missing from North America. There is, the odd thing here and there, but for the most part, it's mostly covered.
I got you. Yeah.
And those lists, if you go to consolemods.org and click on Xbox, there's a list on the left side, general info. I've got a list of all DLC from Xbox Live and on discs, a list of every title update, again, that we know of, and then a list, just kind of a shorter list of what we're actively looking for, what we know is missing.
Yeah.
But those longer lists, they have a simple, like a big red box or a green box that says, yeah, we have it, or no, we don't. It's very easy to read those ones. They're long, though, so, like 600 some odd DLC.
Mm-hmm. I am curious, I guess, so far with the since the XCAT release, because it released about a month ago at the time of recording this here. If you're able to share, are you able to share like what the most interesting piece of content you've gotten from that is?
We've had, like I said, nothing for actual DLC yet or title updates. But yesterday I was going through something and I spotted a dump that had a bunch of named celebrity photos.
Oh,
I asked the lead dev to just purge that dump, and he's like, "Yeah, well, we'll get rid of it. We just don't need it." So someone's private photos. I didn't go look at them or anything, but the point is, like, they were on the Xbox. I'm like, okay, that's someone's private stuff that they should not have uploaded, and we do check with you. Hey, like, please check. Make sure nothing you're uploading is illegal or unsafe or anything you don't want to upload. Like you've been warned, kind of. So yeah, we're getting rid of that dump. But other than that, no, I would say that's the most interesting thing. We have found actually Evox skins, and that's what those were. They were Evox skins of like X or Y celebrity.
Yes.
It's background photos. So there's a ton of Evox skins. I'm sure we'll find some stuff like scene stuff once we start digging more. The back end tools aren't fleshed out all that much yet. It's mostly just the gathering the info still. As I said, Crunchbite is quite busy still right now, and when he has free time, he will flesh out the back end tools to help us search for stuff a little better.
For sure. Yeah. I'm just finding it funny. It's interesting. It sounds like somebody might have used their Xbox as a photo store, I guess, if they wanted to, which isn't the craziest thing I've heard for one of those. I know somebody did that with a 360. Like someone I know, he did that with a 360. And at least it was good on you all to delete that. I can respect that, but we just
don't need that.
I'm kind of sitting there thinking, I'm like, how recent was that? Was that put there like the last year or two? Or is it something from like 20 years ago? It would have made a little more sense 20 years ago.
It probably was an older console. That would be my guess. It was Evox skins though, right? So you got to think people don't really use Evox a whole lot anymore. So it probably was from a long time ago. Mm-hmm. I have actually seen some copies of quests from Phantasy Star or actual DLC or updates, but they're always like a patched version. Okay. The reason they come up as something unique is because they're not the same file. Their hash doesn't match, right?
Correct, yeah.
It shows up as this is a different file entirely, but it does show up as something new. It's just, here's a patched version of Halo 2's French update. Like, whatever. Mm-hmm. Mind you, we have found some recent updates with Insignia going live with Halo 2. They came up with I think, the Japanese title update, or was it the French or the Japanese? French. Yeah. They found one of the big title updates that we're missing for Halo 2, and we're still missing a few of those, but they're not horribly like essential. We're not going to die without like we're missing the Korean update 5, the Spanish update 5, and the Japanese one still. But Halo 2 is kind of unique. So most games, when they release like in a different region, so Crimson Skies, it's a PAL copy, a North American copy, and the PAL is like Europe and Australia and Oceania, etc.
Yeah.
So you'll have two fully separate releases. You'll have sometimes additional languages on the PAL copy or different languages on each copy. Halo 2 isn't a regional release. Halo 2 is a language release. So there's an English, French, German, Italian, Spanish, Korean, traditional Chinese for Taiwan, and Japanese releases. There are 8 total. Mm-hmm. And each one has all 5 title updates. So there are 40 title updates for Halo 2.
Okay. All right.
That being said, the only differences in the final update, I haven't checked all the old ones, but the only differences in the last version, update 5 or 1.5 as people call it, is in the header. So all the code is the same. It's just the XPE version and the date stamps and timestamps and the signatures and all that. So something a user from Italy figured out by the name of Navipar. He's been helped me greatly with this thing. So with updates, we've been able to spoof an update. And by that, what I mean by that is I can take the English update for Halo 2 and just have the original English files there, but change the metadata file to tell the system, hey, this update's actually for like the Italian version or the German version.
Mm-hmm.
That's allowed us to run English update 5 or whatever update 5 we have, final update for a game, on the wrong version of a disk. So we can actually, let's say Japanese, I have on the DLC installer for Halo 2, have a few spoofed updates. So you can install the English update and the system sees it as the Japanese version. So when you put your Japanese disk in or use your Japanese RIP, it will work with the English update and you can still play on Insignia.
Mm-hmm. That's cool. And I know, I feel like you and I, we've talked about, it's not like in like that much depth, like that detail with like the metadata header and everything, but I kind of gathered that from some of what you had told me because I guess for lack of a better term, it was essentially, I had seen like you were kind of like spoofing updates to other regions on that, where it's like you say, like you get the English one and then you can run like the Italian, like just kind of, spoof it to run on the Italian version or what have you.
That's exactly it.
That's cool. I'd love to see it. And these are things people really don't think about all too much when they're just like playing on them and like grabbing the updates and everything at the time. And then it's like years later, once we see this all, it's like, okay, this is going to be a little more complex than expected on here. So like props to people like you who like tackle that and figure it out and like push it forward. But I also love seeing that you've seen it more in recent times where there's more of a preemptive approach about it, kind of like what Pretendo Network has done, for example, where it's like, hey, we're going to rebuild this, like the network for Wii U and 3DS, but let's actually kind of work on this and get the dumps and get everything we need to while the network is still up and running, as opposed to doing something like, no disrespect, but doing something like Insignia, where it's like, you have to go back and reverse everything so many years after it's been shut down.
Yeah, it's been a huge challenge for them. I have a very tiny kind of view behind the scenes, just the same as you do as a tester on Insignia. And I wouldn't say struggling, but they've had an uphill battle. Like they've done a lot of hard work, and I'm thoroughly impressed by how well how much they've achieved. Like they've done a great job overall, I would say, with going from nothing to a functional service with the most popular title on Xbox 3 or original Xbox on there.
Yeah. Yep. And I'm proud of the Insignia boys and the team over there, but yeah, it's very much been a thing of, I remember people were wanting that rebooted Xbox Live service for so long, and even like early episodes of Mod Chat, there were probably at least 2 or 3 different revival projects that I ended up covering that were either shuttered or they stopped development or they were just in like different places of development here and there. So even though, Insignia was really the first one across the finish line, so to speak, but it's been really nice seeing that there. I know there's been a lot of impatience with it, which I'm kind of just like, I tell people, I'm like, dude, it's a free service, all right? You're not paying anything for this here. But even some of the stuff, it's like, it needs more games. Well, it has more games. Well, my game's not on here. Well, your game's probably on there now. The biggest one was, I won't join until Halo 2 is working. It's like, well, Halo 2 is working now.
What's their excuse now?
Exactly. It's just like, oh, well, I want to play it on the 360. It's like, dude, just get an original Xbox or even get an emulator.
I wouldn't say my problem with the community, but this is like the one sore spot I have in the whole community is like there are a lot of amazing, kind, loving, just friendly, good, giving people in the Xbox community. There's just so many of them. But when it comes to, especially with Insignia, people show up and they expect you to move mountains for them because they want their title, or instead of saying, hey guys, could you please help? Or just, could someone help me? People come in with the expectation of, you're going to help me now.
Yes.
It's like, come on, guys. Like, they've worked hard for this. All the testers work hard. All the people who in the support forum work hard. The users just sitting in the chat every day helping out, they work hard for it. Like, they don't owe you anything. Maybe come in with the attitude of, hey, I want to help build this community, but can you please help me, get my console onto your service?
Exactly.
That's a good way to get into it.
Yeah.
Well, I don't have a lot of patience for those people, and people have actually. Someone recently said that I've come off as I can't remember what it was. It was something very negative of a keyboard warrior or something. And I'm like, no, you must have missed the context. If someone comes in and says, please help, like I will jump up and try to help and do what I can to help. But some people come in and go, you're going to help me right now. I demand this. It's like, man, like you're rubbing me the wrong way. I don't really want to get you where you need to be in this because of the way you're treating everyone else.
Exactly.
So when people come in and ask nicely or just say, I've got a problem, can help. That's cool. I really like seeing the community come together and helping those people.
Yep. Yeah, the rapport goes a long way. I mean, you and I, we've been on the old internet as well, too, where it's like, it's a little bit, I mean, we can get to a whole topic of, internet being sanitized and all that, but in a little bit of a way, it's kind of like, bringing back some bullying is okay. Like if you're going to have like the type that I specifically miss is when people were going like on a forum and they were asking for something, but they didn't use proper, anything proper in terms of like pronunciation, in terms of grammar. They were being very demanding about it, spamming and all that, calling out people, trying to tag them. It's like those people would get flamed. Because it's like, hey, you're coming on here, you're being a nuisance. Nobody wants to help you if you're going to be like this. But if you actually come to the table, it's like, hey, I need some assistance here. I've tried this. This is what I've tried. This has been my experience so far. If anybody has anything they'd like to contribute, that'd be awesome. If they see that you've structured your argument well, that you have written it out well, that you have actually put forth the effort and tried, and maybe it's even something that's just completely out of your wheelhouse, but you're, familiar enough to at least kind of ask what's going on here and have some humility, then people aren't going to flame you for that.
Last week, tonight, did a great episode on public shaming. And public shaming is a terrible thing of treating people poorly for no reason when they don't deserve it. But when someone comes in and treats the whole room like they're a servant or something, and like those are people who should be publicly shamed and told, look, what you're doing is wrong. This is the way to go about it. And if you don't change your attitude, people are not going to be very receptive or helpful toward you.
Yeah.
That's the polite way to say it, but the way you're saying it makes sense too. Just, well, if you're going to be a jerk, you're going to get bullied,
Exactly.
So for Insignia, they have a support forum, and I have I put together the simple kind of DNS troubleshooting guide and a bunch of other simple troubleshooting steps. Something like 6,000 characters now. It's kind of long, but it's got a lot of info. So if you have a problem with Insignia, that's the first place to look. And if you go through that and still have issues, you can post in the support forum or search the support forum for your issue, and you'll probably find something.
Mm-hmm. I'm sure you don't have a lot of the times though where there's people who they say they went through it, and then you end up helping them, or someone gets some help to them, and then it's like the very first or second issue that's in that post ends up fixing it.
I get that a lot where somebody says, well, I went and solved it. I'm like, well, you went and solved it by reading the guide that I wrote 2.5 years ago? Yes, because people come in and give a lot of attitude saying, fix it for me now. Like, okay, well, here's the troubleshooting steps. Even though they're here, I'm going to write them out for you again. And then more and more attitude. Somebody was freaking out at myself and another member, Evan Blacks, a while back about being mean to him about piracy. And like, we don't care if you pirate. Like, I personally don't care. It's you're downloading your games. You do what you want, right?
Yeah.
Insignia does not allow to talk about piracy. Discord does not allow to talk about piracy. So can't talk about it. That's fair. That's there's nothing wrong with that. It's their rules. When you walk into someone's house and they say, look, I got a few ground rules, as long as they're not insane ground rules that you just make you leave, like you obey those rules and you be courteous and polite to people who are hosting you,
Exactly. Yeah.
So when it comes to games though, they do have something like 170 games now, and a lot of them are really good titles. Like there's a lot of fun games like Battlefront 2, Crimson Skies. There's huge racing communities over there with Project Gotham Racing 2. Like there's quite a few interesting and fun games that people probably played on Xbox Live and didn't realize, hey, I can go back and play this on on a fake Xbox Live. Counter-Strike, you think, oh well, it's the same as PC Counter-Strike. It's actually not. It's based off 1.6, but it's the first Counter-Strike game that has bots.
Yeah.
And it was, as much as the audio for the voice chat in that game is abysmal, just use Discord, the gameplay is actually really fun. It's good, simple fun.
Mm-hmm.
Highly recommend checking out Counter-Strike on Insignia. Run a games night or hop in and join the games night.
I remember when I played it a little bit during the testing, I'm just like, wow, this, I think I had, to be fair, I also had some delay because my setup I was using on my computer and everything, but at the same time, I'm just like, well, okay, I definitely have to get used to the shooting on here because I feel like I'm, you're laughing because you know exactly what I'm talking about. I don't have to explain it.
Movement is a bigger issue because if you collide with either like a bot or another friend, and you just kind of both like move around very jankily, quite severely. But yeah, you learn to get around that. Is just not run into your friends, essentially.
Yeah, fair.
But yeah, I mean, if you haven't hopped on Insignia yet, hop on at some point. And you know what? Next time Go Team Scotch runs an Xbox video chat night, we should get you out there too.
Oh, dude, I'd be down. Yeah, I'll
probably talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, we could. Yeah, most certainly. I was gonna say, I could put Lily on the camera as well too, which is what I did when I had that working. But yeah, no, what's going on with this? This is essentially a little bit of kind of like a passion project for you all of getting that Xbox Live video chat app running.
For me specifically, because Luke Usher had mentioned it a couple of years ago. Hey, why doesn't someone just try an iToy? And I was always interested in this thing, the camera and all that beforehand. I'm like, this is so cool. I want to get one. It's such a cool collectible thing. But beyond that, it's like, well, what if we can make our own?
Yeah.
So I kind of took that and started buying up various webcams and doing a lot of research. And then Xbox 7887 helped out buying up a few cameras in the US because it is way cheaper to buy things in the US than in Canada. Let me tell you, off eBay.
Yes, it is.
So where you pay $5 with free shipping, I'll pay $5 with $25 shipping in Canada.
Because you have to do the whole like international shipping and all that stuff, and the repacking service and customs and all that.
Not even that. It's just the USPS is subsidized for you guys.
Yes.
You guys pay a lot less for shipping than pretty much anywhere else in the world.
Yes, we do.
Not everywhere, but most places.
Yeah.
So I couldn't give you a timeline without researching it because what's the point? So Xbox 7887 helped me a little bit with that. Luke Usher had the idea of using an iToy, and then I just kind of ran with it and kept researching and learning. And then Risey happened to be in chat one night in one of the private Insignia chat channels, and I sent him the information I had. And what I thought was you're supposed to send like an actual data pulse, like an actual zeros and ones or something.
Yeah.
I was not thinking. So we have the data sheet for the chipset for the iToy. Not for the Xbox, but for the iToy camera. And he figured out, you just ground those two pins because that tells it's a hardware register to tell the chipset, hey, you're only a video camera, you're nothing else. And before that, I had modified the USB descriptor to say Xbox camera and change the device IDs, and I've done all that, no problem. But we still didn't have a video. Mm-hmm. So as soon as Risey shorted those two pins to ground, and it told the chipset, hey, only send video, don't send audio data. Poof, it started working.
Mm-hmm.
Instantly. So then after that, it was, okay, well, where are the device IDs and the executable? I think he found that too. Libby helped patch the entire checkout, but that was a little unsafe to release, so we didn't do that. In the software, the Japan exclusive Xbox video chat software.
Yeah.
And then Evan Blacks went and built a fairly good, it was fairly good, now it's really good, the translation.
Yes.
So now we have Xbox video chat with a way to convert PS2 iToys to Xbox video chat cameras.
And you actually, with that, when it was still in development, you actually had me buy my first iToy, because the iToy was something I thought it was really cool for the PS2 and like always had love for it. But I never, how do I put it? Like I never ended up owning one. Never bought one or anything, never got one in a bundle or any of that stuff. But I remember then you had put that in front of me and I was like, I'm going to give this a shot. And then, also that was when I started, using the microscope with my soldering iron a little more. So that was a fun thing, because it's really only like one wire you need, if I remember correctly, but it's just small points you have to solder to. Yeah. Because there's two pins on the IC that you have to short. But then once you do that, put it all back together and then just adapt it, and it was working fine. I was taking several photos, I remember, and like my favorite ones were just like, you can see my gamer tag on there, but Lily is on the camera, but it's working.
There's a bit of history if you look back at, I guess, your Twitter, Risey's Twitter, and mine from, I couldn't even tell you when, 2022 in December, somewhere around there.
Mm-hmm.
There's a couple photos and videos and stuff, and because Go Team Scotch got interested in it recently, we've actually had a video chat with 5 of us on at once, and the audio was abysmal, so we ended up using the Discord for audio. But it was fun to just play around in this 20-some-odd-year-old video chat, or I guess just about 20-year-old video chat app.
Yeah, Yeah, or something where it's like it's been just dead and gone, but then you get on it. And I've had that. I've had that with some other projects as well too, where it's like, you know, friends and I might be like experimenting with something like playing a build of a game online. It's like, wow, we might be, if we're not the first people who have played this online, we're quite literally the only people who are running this online right now.
January 9th, 2023 is when I had my big first post about it. So if you want to go back to my Twitter and look at that, you'll find a bunch of photos. I believe you responded to mine, or you should have a tweet from around the same time with the same thing of, hey, look at this cool camera.
Yeah, I definitely did, because I think that sounds familiar, because it was one of those things I didn't want to like post anything publicly about it until, like, you know, others had posted about it just out of respect.
So beyond the whole iToy thing, a friend of mine, we had located an original Xbox camera from someone else who had really helped with the DLC preservation a couple of years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And he sold his Xbox Live camera, or Xbox Live video chat camera, to another friend of mine who bought it for me as a gift, so I could go and take it apart and, you know, disassemble it, research it. And I did. It's on my YouTube, but I have a Twitch stream from October last year of taking this thing apart and kind of showing the guts of it. I've dumped the USB descriptor, which you can actually flash right to a PS2 iToy and make it appear as a PS2 iToy, as an Xbox camera. Mm-hmm. So if you want to see the whole teardown the insides of that thing, it's available. Now, unfortunately, that friend who got me that camera, he had his own, but as part of a deal for something else, he had to trade his away. So against my collector instincts, I actually gave it back to him, because it's a better home. Yeah. He has a better home for it than I do.
But you
have like 10 iToys now.
But you getting it at least did help in that regard. So that's nice. You got it for as long as you needed.
Yeah. I mean, it was cool to kind of unlock a few secrets about that. Actually, something I have to put out, I haven't released yet. That same guy, it's OG Xbox Gamer. He's on Twitter and Instagram and a few other places, and Reddit. He's got a crazy collection. I would check out his stuff. Mm-hmm. He was in contact with someone who has a prototype of that camera, like the original version.
Yeah.
I have photos from that person. I keep forgetting to get them posted. We have to get them onto Xbox Dev Wiki. We have photos of a teardown of the original Xbox video chat camera prototype.
Mm-hmm.
It'd be cool just to kind of share that and get that out there.
That would be cool. Yeah. Yeah, because I'm not sure if the firmware or anything has gotten out there or anything either.
I doubt it will be. And it's not a firmware thing. There's a small EEPROM chip on there that's twice as large as the original Xbox EEPROM.
Oh,
that is just a USB descriptor. It gives a bit of config data to the chipset, but it also just tells the computer, hey, this is the USB device, this is the class and the device ID and you know, the naming and all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, that's on Xbox Dev Wiki right now. If you go there and look at the video chat, or video, the camera, whatever it's called, if you go there and look at the wiki page for that, I put the whole USB descriptor there and kind of marked off a few important locations on it. Important information on it.
All right. I see you. That's awesome. Yeah.
Oh, Xbox Video Chat, it's alive again on Insignia, and it's just a cool little, you know, gimmick. It's a gimmick, but it's a really cool gimmick. That's the way I think about it.
Agreed. Yeah, it's a nice nostalgic type thing. So, and I think because it was only meant for Japan, wasn't it?
It was only released in Japan. The software is very Japanese only, so it's very hard to read if you're not. You can manage it, but you can't really read a lot of what's there.
Yeah.
The translation from Evan Black's.
Yeah, but you can get through it. And then even if you're one of those people who you might be thinking, like, I've never heard of a webcam for the original Xbox, like, that was a part of it as well, too. It was only released in Japan and very limited to my understanding.
Borman has a video on it. He talks about it a little bit. I think it's like P2P Online or something like that.
Yes,
his YouTube account. He's got a video on it where he talks about the two different releases. There's like the big box retail release and a smaller mail order release that was like a blank cardboard box. It's worth checking out his video for a bit more history of it.
Mm-hmm. Right on. I personally have not seen that, or if I have, it's been a while, but I know he does good stuff. I've been familiar with him for quite a while. Yeah, I guess.
So other projects? What else would you like to talk to?
Dude, I'm so down. Yeah, if you have any other Xbox projects, I know one of them was PrometheOS. We were talking about that, but even just anything specific that you've been working on as well too, I'm so down.
PrometheOS, I'm just a tester. I help those guys out a little bit because I have a little bit of experience with the Xbox modding community and stuff.
For sure.
But PrometheOS is really cool. It's just a mod chip OS replacement for Xenium, certain X3s.
Certain X3s?
Exchanger. Yeah, I haven't looked into the details about the X3s yet, but it doesn't support all X3s, only the purple ones or something. You'd have to look at the actual releases for it. They list a bunch of mod chips that it supports.
Okay, so from what I know, because the purple one is just the X3, like that's the first release that came out, not necessarily a prototype, but more just the first run. And then the one that everyone thinks of is the red and white one, which is the CE, like the X3 CE, like Christmas edition. I think that's what it stood for. For what it's worth, actually, I don't know if this information has gotten out there, but a trusted source about that has told me that I guess those purple ones, there was allegedly only 4,000 of them that were produced.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's the only cool thing I have to really contribute in that regard. But in regards to, I didn't know about that limitation that it only works on the purple ones and it's not on the CE.
Back to PrometheOS, it's basically a replacement for Xenium OS, for Xenium mod chips, but it doesn't just support Xeniums. It supports, like I said, X3s, certain Exchangers, XBlast Aladdins, which I think 2 megabyte support is coming for XBlast Aladdin soon. So you'll have the full 4 banks, like 4 256K banks of flash storage, and a few other mod chips. It's worth going and looking at to see if your mod chip supports it, because you can get a lot more out of your mod chip with PrometheOS, which at this point can unlock original Xbox hard drives that that do not match the system.
Yes.
But that hard drive came from what I call orphan hard drives. I kind of coined that term about a year ago, and people haven't quite caught on, but I'm really trying.
Yeah.
If you have hard drives that came from a console you don't have the EEPROM for, we can unlock those on a computer with a bit of work. But with a PrometheOS mod chip, you just pop it in there, pop the Xbox in there, hard drive in the Xbox. You run PrometheOS, you can just unlock it with vendor commands, which are really cool. The WD drive, I'm not sure, I can't remember how the WD works, but with the Seagate drives, it puts, it takes the user password off the drives from the config area with serial over IDE, like a serial connection to the IDE bus. It's crazy.
Okay.
It uses that password to unlock the hard drive.
Interesting. Yeah, because I knew it was vendor commands. I just didn't know the nitty gritty details of it.
I don't know everything about it either, but it's I'm just very thankful that they've done all the work to support that.
Mm-hmm. For sure. So that'll be if someone has just a bunch of orphan hard drives kicking around, they could just set up one Xbox and just have that be the unlocking Xbox and just run through them that way.
Yeah, and what people have been doing is using, you can put a BIOS on that mod chip with PrometheOS that boots right to you can put your XCAT XBE right in the C drive, and you just have that BIOS boot to C drive XCAT. So you would put a hard drive in, unlock it, FTP in XCAT into the C drive or E drive or wherever, and then run it. And then when that hard drive is done, you can kind of e-waste it, because unless you have another good use for it, or you want to dump. We have been consoles that we know have been on Xbox Live. We've actually been imaging the entire drive to look for deleted data as well.
That makes sense. That's good.
Point is, there's better. There's. It's not just a matter of you can dump your drive. You can unlock and dump your drives very easily now, easier than ever before in the Xbox community. But please go out and do that, especially with Japanese and PAL region Xboxes.
Hell yeah. There's I'm curious about this. I know there was that RP2040 mod. I haven't tried it yet, but the as you told me the pronunciation of it, the mod show, which for anybody who doesn't know, you can now take essentially you could take a RP2040, and there is a script out there where you can take a custom BIOS, run it through that script, which gives you a firmware file, which you flash to a RP2040 microcontroller. You solder it into the Xbox in a proper way, and then you have created a mod chip right there with a custom BIOS. I guess I'm curious if if PrometheOS would be possible to run on something like that.
It's going to be. It's not yet.
Okay.
So I've been dabbling in PCB design for close to 10 years, and the people behind PrometheOS are into PCB design, but I've got a little more experience. So I've been trying to offer my help and saying, look, as soon as you're ready to build a chip, we're going to build a cool chip. Just tell me what you need, So even if it's just research I'm doing for them, that's fine. I just want to help out with that. Mm-hmm. But I'm in contact with what's his name? Shalex and Equinox. So once they've worked out all the kind of hurdles, we're definitely going to be building at least one cool mod chip with a lot more flash storage. But there may not be enough I/O or horsepower, let's say, on one RP2040. So you may end up having a mod chip with an RP2040 and another microcontroller, or two RP2040s or something.
Okay.
And I don't mean like you go buy a Raspberry Pi Pico board. I mean, it's going to be just, I've already pinned it out. I've already got some layouts and stuff done and the pinouts done. You'll be able to buy a mod chip like a full built Xenium, but with just an RP2040 and the flash and all the supported hardware, and hopefully PrometheOS with a ton of flash space on it on one chip.
Yeah, no, I picked up what you were putting down. I think it's similar to what we've seen from, other scenes and such, but I'm sure it'd be really cool to see kind of like a new wave of mod chips where I'm sure that it'll even be, similar PCB designs or really like the same footprint as other ones we've seen. But, as you say, just instead of what is on a Xenium, for example, it's a RP2040, or it's a RP2040 with another microcontroller that's on there. So kind of same footprint, but just different parts on there to actually work with Mod Show.
If you think about it with cost, like a really like a cheap CPLD might cost $3 or $4 or $5 or $10, or a good FPGA might be $10 or $15 or $20. You could put 2 or 3 RP2040s on the same bus on the same mod chip for like $8. So even if you're using multiple cores or multiple microcontrollers, it might be a better option to do that than to have all these giant CPLDs or FPGAs on a mod chip.
I would say so, yeah. Yeah, no, that's cool though. I will admit I still need to give PrometheOS a spin. I've seen the updates. I think it's great. I just one of my main systems here, the one I have next to me, is a X3 system. But I kind of just keep it like as is on there, like still the X3 BIOS and everything. But I do have a open Xenium on my other system that's hooked up in my entertainment area, so I need to get to flashing PrometheOS on there.
It's pretty easy. Equinox or Team Resurgent has released a flasher app for each different type of mod chip, so you would just download your the flasher that goes with that mod chip, like you said, Xenium, or in my case, I have a few XBlast Aladdins around.
Yeah. And
you would just download the XBlast Aladdin or the Xenium bin file, and use that flasher to write that to your mod chip, and you got PrometheOS, and you have to, you can load your BIOSes and stuff on there, but after that, it's just a much more powerful Xenium.
Yeah, and that's awesome. I've loved seeing the resurgence that's come from the original Xbox scene with like, I guess old developers bringing new things, or like kind of regenerating everything as needed, doing it more like clean room or open source, really focusing on that and having just better compatibility overall with a lot of projects, but also seeing a lot of newcomers as well to come to the scene on it. And a lot of it I saw happen probably around, it's been the last 4 years, I'd say around 2020, that's when I saw it really pick back up.
Well, I mean, as soon as Insignia was announced, that was it. It was Wild West again in the Xbox community, with all new interesting things coming out of nowhere. It was like going into the wasteland in Fallout, for example, and just experiencing a whole new world again.
Do you blow up the city or not? That's the question.
I would hope not.
Yeah, I've never done it.
But then this community, sir.
I was just, hey, I'm just saying, from Fallout 3, I was horrified when people would set off that bomb. I'm just like, are you serious? Why would you do that?
Oh, you have to do that evil playthrough for the achievements if you do it on 360.
I know, right? No, I knew people that weren't doing it for the achievements. They did it just because they wanted to do it.
Megaton was just a cooler house than what you get in Tenpenny Tower, though, anyway, right?
I guess so.
I might as well ask you, like, did you watch it? Did you watch the Fallout show?
I've seen one episode of the Fallout show. I have not seen the rest of it, but a girlfriend and I ended up watching it. She had never played the Fallout games. I've played, as most people, Fallout 3, Fallout 4, the DLCs as well, too. I thought it was really good. I enjoyed it. At the same time, I guess I still need to see the rest of it. I thought it could have been better, but from a first episode perspective, for an existing IP, I thought it was great. It was really good for if you enjoyed the Fallout games for what they were. Like, you'll be okay with this, but you also don't have to play or know about the Fallout games in order to enjoy it, which I know she was worried about it. Like when my girlfriend was watching it, I was like, no, this is like an all new story here. And like, if you play the games, there's references you're going to pick up, but you don't have to play Fallout 3, Fallout 4, or even like any of the other ones there. People forget about Fallout 1 and 2, but you don't have to play those to enjoy it. That's been my opinion on it, at least.
Obviously, I'm not going to mention any spoilers, but it's, I would say, a bit of a slow burn to start. You have to get a few episodes in, and it builds up a momentum, and it gets better and better and better up until the last moment.
Mm-hmm.
So if you thought it was kind of slow or just okay to start with, it will improve. And everyone I've spoken to who's watched it has agreed with that so far. I can't speak for everyone, but everyone who I've spoken to about it has agreed that it's a bit of a slow start, but it just keeps getting better.
Right on. And it kind of needs that slow start as well, too. Like, set the atmosphere and everything.
You're introducing, like, think about it like this with the Marvel Cinematic Universe. You didn't have one movie that just said, here's all your characters, now they're all fighting. No, it was, like 15 movies of building up to a massive story with, intro movies for various characters individually. Like Captain America First Avenger was a whole movie just to one character and a few smaller characters,
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying there. At the same time, I will say you're kind of saying that to the wrong person, because I don't do the cape movies. I just really don't. I can enjoy them for what they are, but at some point, this is like almost 20 years ago now, it started to turn into homework. It felt like 15, 20 years ago. Yeah, so now I'm just like, yeah, no, I'm good. And then even people have tried to watch some with me. They're like, oh, you should watch this, you should watch this. I think the most... No, I end up going back to see the Guardians ones, although different. Well, yeah, not different universe really, but one of the other ones was like Thor, where my girlfriend wanted to watch the latest Thor movie with me. She's like, "Oh, it's really funny. You're gonna like it." I was like, "I don't think so, but sure." I saw the first one, I enjoyed it. I think I saw the second one, and then I watched this one. I was like, I mean, yeah, it was fine for what it is, but my interest is not there. I'm sorry, I'm not that. I am a very nerdy person. I'm just not that kind of nerd.
It's fair. My wife is the midnight release kind of gal, where she's, let's go to these midnight releases and go to every single one. We have these posters for all the IMAX shows and stuff. Like, I like them, I enjoy them, but I'm not obsessed with them. It's just, it was an example of a universe that you get exposed to slowly and don't just get dumped in the the middle of.
Sure. Yeah.
That being said, I watched Fallout with my wife. I watched it alone first because I couldn't wait.
Yeah.
I'm a big Fallout fan, going back to Fallout 1 and 2 and tactics and all that. And to a much lesser degree, the Brotherhood of Steel on original Xbox.
Yes. Yeah.
I liked it quite a bit, and my wife paused it often and asked me for lore dumps about, a lot of small subjects quickly. And then she went afterwards and started watching the history of the vaults or the history of, certain characters and stuff.
Mm-hmm. I got you. Yeah, no, that's... I've had a little bit of a similar thing with not necessarily Fallout, though. It was, have you played, I don't think you have a PS5, but have you played Astrobot's Playroom?
I've never even heard of it. Sorry.
Oh, all good. It is a tech demo. It is built into the PS5. Every single PS5 will have a license to that game, and if you get it like brand new, it's already installed on there. It is essentially a platforming tech demo, similar to how like the Wii came with Wii Sports, but just like Wii Sports, it's actually a really, really good tech demo and game, even debatably to the point where it's like, oh, like there's people who would get a PS5 just to play this game. But in short, it is essentially a whole game based around the controller and how to use it on the PS5, while at the same time being a love letter to major PlayStation 1 through 4 lore, all the way up to the PS5, like the system you're currently playing it on. So her and I had a lot of like exciting moments. It was like there was things she was recognizing, but there was stuff that I was recognizing, and then I was kind of lore dumping on her with certain things. And then the thing that she enjoyed was then I would literally be like, we'd finish level, and then like I'd run to my office, or like I'd run into like my storage area or grab something off the shelf and then show her the stuff that was in there, because it will get to the point like you get collectibles, like you can collect like all of the PlayStation consoles. You can collect their little accessories that people don't know about or haven't seen in a while. And then you can go into like a little museum area and move and manipulate them and zoom in on them.
That's pretty cool. It's nice to hear that Sony's kind of writing love letters to their, acknowledging their history and giving a love letter to the fans.
Yeah. No, and And like I said, the best part is it's a really good game. So it's not just like, oh, it's tech demo. It's like, no, you should actually play this one. This one's really good.
I haven't had a PlayStation since PlayStation 3, and I used that for Netflix briefly. Sorry.
Okay, no, I mean, here's the thing. The PlayStation 3, as they said in the ads, they said it only does everything, and I mean, you were using it for everything, which Netflix encompasses that. To be honest, my first PS3 I got, one of the main motivating factors, because I wasn't really into games at the time, was I wanted a multimedia system. So I'm like, hey, I want something to play Blu-rays and stream videos and play videos off the hard drive and music and all that stuff, and the PS3 did that.
Cool.
Yeah.
I think you mentioned multimedia. The original Xbox had a Xbox Media Player. How do I describe it? Media Center extender. So it would let you use Windows XP Media Center Edition and stream video to it. And I actually bought that thing back in the day.
Are you talking about like the remote setup and all that?
Yeah, I had this actually. So what's her name? F4MI?
Friend of the show, Famicom or Fami. Yeah, I know exactly what you're referencing. I'm actually bringing it up right now because she had tweeted about it.
Right. So I don't follow her because I haven't followed her YouTube. I probably should at this point, but a lot of friends follow her, so she shows up in my feed a lot.
Mm-hmm.
She posted about it, this Xbox Media Center extender. I actually bought that thing back in 2005, 2006, somewhere around there.
Mm-hmm.
And then I put all this effort into my ripped DVDs that I legally owned, and then tried to play them on the Xbox. And it turns out it only streams in one format or one codec, which is WMV9.
Oh, ew.
Yeah,
I mean, so it makes sense, but also ew.
It was a great remote for XBMC though, which is what that pushed me to do. So Microsoft made me the way I am today because I paid hundreds of dollars for this, like $150 for this, $250 I think it was for the Media Center Edition software,
mm-hmm.
the XP Media Center Edition. So I paid a lot of money to be able to watch movies that I owned, across my network, and it just didn't work. So I'm like, nope, I'm going to mod and I'm going to get myself some XBMC. So it's actually Microsoft's fault with their lack of support for codecs and support for their hardware that made me into this, the person who's into the Xbox modding community.
I think, and this is in regards to like XBMC with how powerful a platform was, but I remember, I think it was an episode of a podcast that Bob from Retro RGB did with MVG, and he had mentioned on there, because, Bob is like, he's all in with, the video quality and such, but he was saying that I guess he had a original modded Xbox back in the day, like most people. He had XBMC on there, and he said he used that for so long because it was so good, even better than so much of the commercial stuff out there, like to the point where I guess at one point he ended up purchasing a really nice high-end DVD player that I think could also do region free as well too. And he brought it home, he ran it through the paces, and he ended up returning it because the original Xbox running XBMC was better than the top-of-the-line DVD player that he just bought.
That sounds about right. It was the center of it was the media center. It was the. I remember I actually have a computer here that was a Core 2 era computer it was a media center case, and it's this giant brick that's twice the size of the original Xbox at least. This is something people bought as a media center computer. At least I still have the case anyway. And like that versus an original Xbox with this media center extender remote was just amazing. Like it was mind blowing. And XBMC even had a different XML file for the key inputs from this remote. You could just switch the XML file over the remotes, and it would just work with all the extra buttons. Mm-hmm. So I'm kind of hoping she covers this, because I did a brief video on my Twitter a while ago of a documentary that myself and a bunch of other scene members were in about the history and the preservation of the Xbox as a whole.
Okay.
But I did a video in that Media Center extender last year, and man, it is a clunky garbage experience. So Microsoft, when you do media centers, you got to do it like XBMC.
Yep. Well, I mean, this is even something that's worth saying here too. So to add some more context for anybody who might not be as Twitter plugged in as we are. So Famicom ended up getting this, like she got the software for it's called Windows Media Center Extender for Xbox, dumped it, and then she was saying the software has been dumped. However, the dongle and remote are specific for this one software and not compatible with these standard DVD combo ones. Now, Microsoft is lazy for stuff like this, so I suspect they probably just took a Media Center PC receiver unit and put a Xbox controller plug at the end. However, not having one, I can't confirm that, and it basically is unobtainium in the EU. The thing that I wanted to shout out on here was Malenko, another, scene member on here. He actually replied to that. He said this was made so they could sell a proper remote for XBMC, since they couldn't officially support homebrew projects. So that kind of brings it more like full force and full circle on here. And when the other tweet he had was when somebody was asking about that, he elaborated a little bit more, and he said, let's see. This one, somebody had said, I kind of figured they did it because Media Center was starting to take off at the time. And then he replied saying that was a reason, but the extender for Xbox was an answer to XBMC's popularity. They even released the remote's key map in the same XML format XBMC uses as an oops. Lots of oopsies back then. Avalon and Friendtech even had actual meetings about releasing elite models based on their software and hardware mods.
I don't know where that XML came from. I haven't actually seen it. The disk that we're talking about only has 3 executables, like an updater, the dash update, and the app itself.
Yeah.
So I've seen the XML, but I've seen the XBMC one. I didn't know that it was released previously, and I don't know where it or how it was released. That being said, I as well, because I have a lot of experience with this exact remote, and you can use a standard DVD remote with it. You can use a controller with it. You can also use a standard DVD dongle with it.
Okay.
Because I have recently, because I don't think I have the original dongle anymore. It was identical to the DVD one. I believe I dumped that. It had the original DVD player software and everything on it.
Yeah.
So we had just a different sticker on it saying, hey, I'm the Media Center extender dongle, but you can use the original remote, you can use that remote, or a regular controller in that software.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm hoping she covers it. And if she doesn't have the remote and can't get one, gladly lend it over to her wherever she lives, so she can make a cool video. Because I'd like to see more exposure for this abomination of Xbox history. Also, it does not display in 480p. In the updated version, there is actually a title update for that disc, and there's a second release, like 1.01, which has the update built in. Mm-hmm. That doesn't even support 480p. It will only do 480i video.
Really?
Yeah.
That's wacky.
Yeah.
Interesting. All right. As for, I'll just ask this real quick. As for that borrowing thing, if you want me to, I can reach out to her on your behalf and be like, hey, if you're interested, Harcroft would be willing to do this here.
Yeah, absolutely. I understand she's doing videos about the Logitech.
She's doing videos about everything.
That's cool. It's good to see just more coverage of this interesting retro tech that nobody thinks about. Mm-hmm. But Harmonies are very cool.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
Yeah, if she needs help with any of that stuff, I already offered it to her on her Twitter, but I will gladly help get more exposure to this. Like I said, it's an abomination of Xbox history, but the remote is very cool.
I'm looking at it. It looks like a lovely remote. And this is back when it's back in the early mid 2000s, where it's having universal remote was a big deal, is what I'm saying.
Well, this wasn't a universal. It used the same weird frequency the does, because most consumer electronics use 38 kilohertz, and this used something like 56 kilohertz. Mm-hmm. So most consumer electronics would not work with this remote, and most consumer remote work with that electronics with that receiver.
Interesting. So weird, very exclusive, right? Then. Yeah, definitely bonkers.
There is an RCA remote that looks an awful lot like the original Xbox DVD player. It's a remote. They look similar enough. It's clearly but there's also a Media Center PC remote that looks almost identical to this Xbox one.
Interesting.
It was clearly, all done in-house and, all that kind of stuff. I've sent you a link for later to look at this remote. It looks identical.
Okay. I'm actually looking at it right now. Same thing. It's silver, isn't it?
Yeah. And it's essentially the exact same piece of hardware.
I've seen several like this before. I think in some stores, but also, I would have one or two friends where they had, a Media Center setup like this.
It was a great remote until I got the 360 Harmony, which, my God, that was the best remote ever. I loved that thing.
Remotes are serious business, man.
Well, nowadays I just turn on the TV and the computer. I have a keyboard with a touchpad on it, like a K400 or something. That does everything now.
That's nice.
You don't need anything else.
Yeah, that's very nice. Right on. Yeah, I guess.
So,
oh, go ahead.
sorry, go ahead. That's my bad.
No. Go ahead. Go ahead. I think we're in a
I was
segment.
going to say that let's have a next segment, and we'll say it's brought to us by Raid Shadow Legends.
They've reached out to me before, and I'm just like, no, I'm good. Not only like the pay was not there, but I'm also just like, I don't like to take sponsorships for things I'm not really going to be passionate about. And it's like, I don't play mobile games, except recently, like a few days ago, I end up breaking that. I'm one of those odd people. I just don't have games on my smartphone. But then I had kind of a thing where I was just waiting. I was like, wait, I forgot I own all the Grand Theft Autos on Android. So then I downloaded them and I was playing Grand Theft Auto 3.
That's neat. That's a cool way to do it. Yeah. I'm a very basic smartphone person. I have an old LG G5, which does need to be replaced. It's starting to fall apart, but I'm just like, email, YouTube, Reddit, Discord, that kind of stuff. It's a cool piece of hardware, but it's not a gaming device in my home.
Fair.
I have a Switch that I don't use already. That's my gaming device.
And see, yeah, I typically like to use like the Switch or carry that around, but this is one of those times where I'm like, yeah, I'm kind of sitting here. The only thing I have as entertainment is my smartphone here, and I guess I can use that. And then Grand Theft Auto 3 is my all-time favorite game, so I was playing that. And granted, the port is not new by any means, right? It's an old port, but I remember I got it when like it first dropped, and I was playing it like on a Nexus 4, and it wasn't playing super well, and it was a smaller screen. But now it's like I have a Pixel 7 Pro, so it's like a nice screen. The phone is really powerful. I can sit there and play this like beautiful looking like fully 3D game at like a really nice frame rate and all that, because you can unlock the frame rate on there, so it looks good, it runs smooth. There are some issues, mind you, but at the same time, it's like, oh, the biggest issue that I had before was also battery life, and I can sit here and play for 30 minutes, and my battery's like, oh yeah, we're only dead like by 2%. You're good. Keep playing.
Nice.
Yeah. So
when my battery, my phone, my LG G5 was kind of the modular phone. It was LG's foray into modular devices, and it's a really cool phone. There's some cool add-ons for it, but the battery is only 2,800 milliamp hour, and I was buying Power Bear batteries from Amazon in the US, and they were really good. They only last about two years or so, and I've gone through several batteries now, and I'm at the point where I can't find a reliable new battery for it. That's why it has to be replaced.
Speaking of batteries, do you remember the controversy with the iPhone batteries?
I mean, which one?
The one where people were just like, I'm sure you've had this conversation with people. It's like, hey, Harcroft, I know you're a tech person, right? I know it's not just me, but why is it that I get a new iPhone and it's perfectly fine, and within a year and a half, it gets super slow and it's not as good, and it seems to slow down coincidentally around the time they release a new iPhone? I think they're throttling it. And then it turned out that, iPhones would essentially see the age of the battery and how it was degrading, and the further it aged and degraded, the more they would slow down the phone itself, which would take, about a year and a half for it to kick in.
Kind of the opposite of what we're doing with EVs now, right? Where they don't give you full access to the battery, and as the battery wears out, they give you a wider range of access to the charge and discharge cycle on it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Kind of the opposite of that. Like, we have this opposite problem or range, the promised range, but they're not getting it because, they're limiting it to preserve the life of the battery. But yeah, I do recall people complaining about that. And I mean, good for Apple to be smart enough to do that, but terrible job not being honest about it.
Yeah, because they didn't disclose it. So now if anybody is confused by what we're talking about, if you have an iPhone or just a modern iDevice, and you go into the settings, you go into the battery settings, and you look at the options where it shows like what the battery health is, but also essentially showing, hey, do you want us to throttle this to protect the battery, or do you just want to go like full performance? That setting was because of that controversy, because by default, Apple was throttling it. And a lot of people also seem to know, which these people, I mean, it sounded like crazy logic because it really didn't make sense because we didn't have proof of this. But there were people who would say like, yeah, I have this phone and it was slowing down, and then I replaced the battery and now it's much faster. And we would be like, that doesn't make any sense. A new battery doesn't make the phone speed up.
It does. Software-wise, yeah.
In Apple's case, it does. But the problem is they were not honest about it.
I mean, zero surprise. A big tech corporation, pushing their best interests over the consumers. No, I've never heard of that before.
I remember I told my parents about this, and when I was explaining to them, I was tickled by Apple's response, where essentially they had said, I think with in the middle of the whole battery controversy, they were also saying they didn't want people to replace their own batteries or to use third-party batteries because their PR reasoning was essentially that replacing the battery on your own iPhone involves a complicated process where you have to open it up, and we care about our users and the consumers, and it is a very dangerous process. So if you are replacing your battery, there's a chance that some could go wrong and that you could injure yourself. And because they care about you so much, they don't want you as the end user to replace your own battery.
I mean, they could just make it less dangerous and build a phone that's, repairable.
That would be nice as well, too. But clearly they don't do that.
Not going to happen.
Not going to happen, no.
Well, going back to the Xbox, it's my kind of specialty. It's nice to have a piece of hardware that's mostly repairable, like it is. Like, tweak the DVD laser, replace some capacitors. It's a cool piece of hardware.
I've actually used that as how do I put it? As a example for many people, like in other scenes and stuff. And that's like one thing I've noticed with the Steam Deck or even like the Mr. community. And essentially it's not exclusive to the Xbox, but I guess in my own brain, because, I love console modding and such so much, but I've kind of explained it as essentially like the original Xbox, like problem solving issue of being able to find ways to fix up, mod your system, get out of whatever pickle you're in. The original Xbox, it's been around for so long. There's so many sites out there, so many archives, so many resources. This thing has just been completely tapped out to the point where really any issue you run into, you can look it up. And as long as you're doing a proper job looking it up, you can find other people who ran into that issue and most likely a fix for that. And if you cannot find a fix for it, join a community, ask your issue, and you're probably going to find someone who can help you out with that.
I would agree with. There are motherboard failures that are non-recoverable or require so much work it's not worth it. But those, I wouldn't say the minority, but they're not that common.
Yeah,
not super common. They're not super rare either. They're part of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's going to happen with any device, of course.
I actually had a question for you about this because when I was young, even in my teens, when I get something that's broken, I take it apart, I fix it. Pull it apart, you're going to break it. Like, well, it's already broken. Did you have that attitude? And you kind of coming up into the repair and modding community where people were asking, well, how would you open that? It's going to destroy this or that. And you're like, well, it's the worst that can happen, Like, what was your experience with that?
I guess you were cutting out a little bit on my end, but I guess you're asking like if, how I handle that there. Like if I had like a broken unit or something that was busted, if I was like, I guess you asked if I was like afraid of opening it or if I kind of just went gung ho, be like, well, it's already broken.
And what was the reaction you had from like, family or friends who saw you like, doing the dangerous thing of taking that warranty label off?
I'm really thinking, so for a long time, I was a software-only person because that was kind of instilled in me from parents and family where they were just like, no, you don't want to break it any further. Software's going to be better. Just like the whole thing of where I had family members where they would say laptops are better than desktops because laptops are portable. And it's like, well, how are they portable when we take a laptop and then every single laptop we get, we hook it up to a external keyboard and mouse and monitor and speakers and docking system and then disable the screen on it and then keep it running 24/7 and run it into the ground. At that point, we should get a desktop. That's kind of off the tangent though. But when it came down to it, I didn't really start taking stuff apart. Like there were a few devices I took apart just like if they were completely busted and it was just taking it apart out of interest. But in terms of like taking things apart to try and fix it up and such, I really didn't start doing it until I was an adult, like a new adult, like when I was 18. Because at that point I had my own money and it was more of a thing of I'm not going to mess with my own hardware that's working, but I'm going to buy up broken or for parts hardware, take it apart and see what I can do. Family and friends thought what I was doing was cool. I also, of course, since it was like the 360, I was starting with that. I had, some of my best friends where I was like, hey, do you mind if I check out your broken Xboxes? And they're like, yeah, I have 3 broken ones in my closet. I haven't used them in 3 years. Sure, go ahead, have fun. Do what you want to with them. So that was a fun thing with it. Then going into like computer repair, replacing components and all that stuff. I didn't really have anyone who was against it, thankfully. They thought it was neat. They thought it was a cool thing. It was more just, hey, if the stuff is working, maybe don't take it apart. But for the stuff that's not working, if you have the money for it, cool, give it a shot. If there's a use for it, awesome. I've always been that tech person, so especially family, they never really had anything against it. I think it was just when I was younger, they didn't want me to rip things apart because like, hey, okay, you're a kid, you're going to rip it apart, you're not going to be able to put it back together. But at that point later on, they're like, okay, we're going to benefit from this, and also this kind of helping you with your career and your interests and all that. So just have fun.
I definitely had a habit of taking things apart when I shouldn't have when I was young.
Thankfully, I didn't do that. Yeah. No, I
had a few other projects I actually wouldn't mind mentioning if you're up for it.
Dude, go ahead.
Stuff I wrote down to think about. Like years ago, people when it was like up and coming, people did tell me, you do these cool weird projects, like you need to get these on YouTube, and I had ideas for it, but I never really got into it too much.
Mm-hmm.
So I just wrote a couple little things I had done. Remember the Minecraft when they first started selling merch? There was like the torch and like the little redstone and diamond and all that stuff.
I'm not into Minecraft, but I do know what you're talking about. Yes.
So I took their really crappy torch with like 3 AAA batteries in it and just a regular 6 or 3 LEDs or whatever it was. Put flickering LEDs in it. I took it completely apart. Got a lithium polymer battery in there, where you could make like this flickering bright torch that actually would kind of look more like a Minecraft torch versus just a a little wall hanger that has a little tiny, like a flashlight, essentially.
Yeah.
Other things that I did, because I couldn't afford a real microscope at the time, I bought one of those really cheap microscopes from China. And this thing was garbage. And I spent a lot of time decrapifying it, is the way I would describe it.
Okay.
The thing actually had a space for a microphone in it. So I installed a microphone, put a better battery, the brightness control garbage. So I tweaked that. It did stuff I wanted to get on YouTube, but never actually did.
Mm-hmm.
It would have been cool to see where I would go with that, but I don't think I don't think I'd ever be like the big nerd who makes a big YouTube channel for this stuff.
Sure.
It would have just been some cool projects to get up on there to get people to copy,
Yeah. At least getting information out there and having some inspiration for others.
I was just some like because everyone had that aspect in the early or the mid 2000s or whenever YouTube came out of, if I could do some YouTube stuff and and make it big and earn a few dollars on that, I think there was a lot of that gold rush.
Although at the same time, and I'm not even like poo-pooing on that, but like you also remember part of the old internet, even before that, was no, you got to put all this stuff out for free, and it's taboo to make any sort of money off of it.
Yeah.
Like I clearly remember the day, like if we're talking YouTube, I clearly remember the days of YouTube where it's like people were absolutely like roasted, thrown to the fire for daring to have monetization enabled on their channel.
And now if you have monetization turned off, you still get ads.
Exactly. Yeah.
Just looking through I made a list of, some cool things I wanted to mention. I'll be really quick about this one.
Sure.
For the Steel Battalion community, I've been kind of connected to them for the last couple of years, especially since they're now on Insignia.
Yes.
And I've got some experience with PCB design. I've been making replacement parts for them for their original controllers because they have a lot of controllers that are missing like one bad board or one bad pedal or something.
Yeah. So
I've been designing and selling at a very low price parts for them, so they could bring back these controllers that are, a $500 controller missing a $5 switch. Well, I can give you a $10 board to fix that.
For sure.
It's been cool being part of that community because those guys are very not obsessive. They're just like fervent. They're very excited about their games and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
they're also the most welcoming part of the Xbox community I've ever seen. They will try to help you get the cheapest controller possible. They will sit there for hours on end and teach you how to play the game that they love. It's if you ever thought about, Steel Battalion looks so daunting, but I always wanted to try a controller, I would check out that community. They're actually really nice people and very giving and welcoming.
That's awesome. Yeah, I've had the thing personally with Steel Battalion where it's like it looks cool. I've the closest I've gotten, because I have both Steel Battalion games on the original Xbox, but I have the OGX 360, I want to say, and then when Risey ended up doing the update that allows the chat pad to be connected and you can play Steel Battalion from there, I did that. The functionality is cool. The only thing is it's very similar to like using an emulator where it's like, okay, you see the experience there, you can gather it, but like, for example, playing a Super Nintendo game with a Super Nintendo controller just makes sense, while just playing it with a keyboard and mouse, you're going to feel a little bit of a disconnect there. And that's essentially what I was having when I was playing it with a 360 controller and a chat pad, where I'm like, okay, this game is cool, but it's not really getting the full experience here because I don't have the pedals and the control and all that. Also, it's really difficult, which I didn't feel that bad about being bad on, because like, from what I understand, Steel Battalion has just always been a difficult game.
Definitely. Yeah. From what I've seen, people are this huge, it's a huge challenge. People asking for, like, will sit there on their Discord asking for help of what to do for every step of a certain mission to get through it.
Yeah.
The single player version.
Yeah. And then I finally played it a few years ago. It's like, whew, this game is cool, but wow, this is difficult.
Yeah. I have not actually played much myself. I was just fooling around with it with some of the other guys a few weeks ago, just getting them some information about they are working on a PC port.
Ooh.
Of Line of Contact.
Okay. Line of Contact, that's the second one that came out, right?
That's the online only multiplayer versus that campaign type stuff mode.
And that one I have not played because at the time it was before Insignia was released, and then I wasn't on any of the tunneling services, which I don't even think you could tunnel on that one. But I mean, physically
actually.
You could. Okay, so I figured there had to be something like that, but I had the disc. I remember I ripped it over, I fired it up, and I'm like, oh, I can't get much further than the start screen. That's okay. I'll just go back to the first one. I should practice a little more.
Yeah. I still have not actually played it yet. I will check it out at some point when I can make space on my desk for that 40 button 8-foot wide controller.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm also working on a homebrew controller with some of their guys, trying to build a fairly large PCB that has all the main housing, like the left stick, and the right stick you'll have to supply your own joystick, whatever kind of joystick we can get working with it.
Yeah,
it's not going to be that cheap, but it's going to be cheaper than the original device. And I'm also working on adapters so you can use Thrustmaster or Logitech pedals on a Steel Battalion controller, because the pedals are also a thing that just break or disappear. That, like, I have a controller from the first game with the green buttons that has no pedals. So I actually have Logitech and Thrustmaster pedals here to build adapters to try to get those working for this game.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's just a cool long-term project. But before that, I'm trying to get some other stuff out the door before I really sink my teeth into that one.
No, makes sense. Yeah, cool. What else have you been working on?
Well, the big one is what I was just calling Risey HDMI or Risey's HDMI, and the community, I think Malenko termed this one, or coined this term, was Open HXD or OXHD.
Okay.
So Risey did a lot of work in secret, I guess, by himself, and built up a functional internal HDMI mod around the same time as the Make Megahertz mod.
Yeah.
But once the Make Megahertz product came out, Risey kind of just left it on his GitHub as a, here's something I worked on. And the community has been kind of asking for something open source or something more, available for a reasonable price, or I guess a reasonable price, because it's a lot of dev work. It's expensive hardware to assemble it. It's a lot of work to build the firmware. So building a cheaper device, I would say, is a good term for it. I've been working on, since December, getting Risey to HDMI board in a state that it can be released as a homebrew project, kind of like you can build your own OpenXenium.
Mm-hmm.
We've made massive progress so far. We've got one of the 2 flex cables completely done, validated, working. I've got another batch coming I've tightened it up a little bit so if it's a little nicer. We have some of the prototype 3 boards working, and what I'm calling the version 1.0 board, we're changing the microcontroller to be something a little newer.
Okay.
To make a little more sense for cost and features, because I don't want to have a product that's using a 7-year-old microcontroller that there's only 10 years of service on, or I think it's 2017, so 7-year-old microcontroller with a 10-year service life. So in 4 years, I don't want people to go, hey, we need a whole new microcontroller for this.
Yeah.
So we're trying to get all the features, not necessarily built into the first release of the firmware. It's going to be a community thing. Like, people will have to build up the firmware themselves. It is functional, as it is with Risey's original build, but the idea is to make it free and open source, that everyone can just go, either get one assembled from a modder or build one themselves and just download and compile the source, or get a compiled binary from someone else.
Yeah.
Risey HDMI or OXHD firmware, to be very specific. Basically, it's just another internal HDMI mod with some extra features. And the biggest one was, the most requested thing was support for pin compatibility with the flex cable with megahertz's flex cables. And I was very reluctant to do that because I didn't want to step on any toes.
Sure.
But other people are making similar boards that use the same flex cable, and it would not make sense for the community-wide, for the whole community, to say you need to use a different flex cable for each HDMI mod. I don't think that's a very good idea for the whole community to have to take off a flex cable and install a different one. So I designed from based on Risey's original design, a complete 1.0 to 1.4 flex cable, and I'm working on the 1.61. That was the first requested feature. The second most requested feature was a toslink out, so you could have a secondary audio out.
Okay.
Even though you could use an HDMI audio extractor, I've figured that out, and we've switched to a TRRS jack, 3.5 millimeter jack, so you can use it for component video, or if you wanted to repin the jumpers on the motherboard to do composite video, you could do composite video and audio, or just stereo audio.
So you can, through that port, so through the HDMI mod, you're saying that you could also, if you're one of those people who prefers components, you could pull component from that.
Yeah, but you wouldn't get audio because it's the same port, right? So you'd have to get audio from your HDMI, or you could, wire up another audio port. It's a 4-pin jumper, so anything you can do with 4 pins, like you could theoretically wire it to your EEPROM if you wanted to.
Mm-hmm.
Or your power button or something else, right? Like it's a headphone jack with 3.5 millimeter headphone jack with 4 conductors. So whatever you can connect 4 conductors, component video, audio, whatever you want, you can connect into that. And has an LED on the back end of the port, which I'm trying to remember the name of the person. Someone on Twitter talked to me about it, and he suggested it because I think the Mister has it. Just an LED on the back end of the open-ended port. So you can use just an LED to power your Toslink video. Really? I'm sorry, Toslink audio, SPDIF audio. It was Electron Ash who suggested it.
That's incredible, actually.
Yeah, so I tried it out. I have some videos on the original Xbox, or the Xbox Scene Discord in the OXHD public channel of literally just using an LED to do Toslink, and it works wonderfully.
That's awesome. And one of those things where it's like you wouldn't. That's just ingenious, right? I don't have much else to say. That's just incredible, like crazy enough to the point where it's like, I don't know if that's crazy or like just off the wall genius, but that's ingenious there.
But it's also no cost added if you don't want to use those features. You just don't buy a Toslink port. You don't buy the 4-pin port. You don't buy the cable for it. It's just, if you want to save $2 or $3, you just buy a cheaper version of this. So it's kind of a little bit modular, where you can kind of choose what you want yours to do if you're making it yourself, especially.
Mm-hmm.
Again, not my idea. It was just something somebody, Ash Evans, had brought, or Electron Ash, had brought to me. And I thought, that looks like a good idea. I'm going to test that out. And sure enough, he was right. It came, he said he got it from the Mister project. It's just another thing people requested heavily that I thought, okay, well, how can we do this? And I got it working.
That's awesome. I
don't know what else to say about this. I'm working on it. It's coming along. It's not done yet. I'm not going to release the board files or anything else until it's in a functional state. And so the last thing I want to do is hand out an open source project that is very incomplete and people think it's complete, and they go and spend their money and find out, oh, this isn't done. I just wasted a bunch of money on this. That's the last thing I want. So it's going to be done before I release it. And at that point, there is going to still need to be some community help to flesh out the firmware to make it as good as it can be, even though it does work right now.
I was going to ask about that in terms of like compatibility with different motherboards or different configurations, or if there might be any oddities that need to be ironed out. I feel like not all that can really be tested until it's really put out there for the masses to give a shot and then report back their findings.
Yep, I would agree with that. The flex cable that I've done so far, I didn't just go and build it in a vacuum. I asked a lot of installers of various flex cables for like N64 and PlayStation and various PlayStation consoles, like, what do you want to see on a flex cable to make it easier for you to install?
Mm-hmm.
And so with that feedback, I've done a lot of work to make it as easy as possible, make the fit better, make parts of the board stick out to the end of the chip, just to say, hey, this is exactly where to install it, or to a certain line of the motherboard, just to make it make the user experience as easy as possible for an installer.
Yeah.
So every time I get a bit of feedback, like, we're going to roll it into the next version and make it as good as possible for you, the people who are trying to install it.
That's awesome. So we're going to hand in hand with the installers and with people who've been experienced. It sounds like it's been definitely paramount with this project.
Of course, because if it's a community project, you want the community to be happy with the end result and,
of course,
and have a good experience using it. So
of course,
it's certainly not done yet, but I'm making huge progress, taking a lot of good feedback, a lot of bad feedback, and we're getting there.
That's awesome. I guess this might be a little bit of a big question, but what's been the most difficult aspect of it so far?
I don't want to speak ill of people because it's just mean, but basically I've asked for feedback on some things and I'm saying I'm looking for feedback about this exact subject. And then I get feedback about, if I ask for feedback about subject A, I get a ton of feedback about subject Z. You know what I mean? Like
yeah,
I appreciate what you guys are saying, but I need information on what we're talking about right now. That's been the hardest thing for me. And It's not, honestly, the PCB design I'm not finding is hard. It's just extremely tedious. Like I'll sit here for 12 hours on Discord chatting with people while streaming the design. And, it's slow going sometimes. It takes a lot of work to make just everything line up neatly. And it's not just the visual aspect. It's about making it as physically easy to build as possible. So I've done ridiculous limitations, like said, only topside components. I don't want any bottom components because if we do a pick and place, you'll have to, get the reflowed twice, or it's going to cost a lot more to produce in mass. I'm only doing a 2-layer board, which is not technically in the HDMI spec, but we do have it working wonderfully with no signaling issues so far.
Yeah.
So again, try to keep the cost down, make it as cheap and accessible as possible to the average. I can't say the average user, the average person who can install a flex cable. Let's put it that way.
Sure.
It's been a challenging project, but I have a lot of community help, and I really appreciate the feedback from a lot of the community and from the installers who've done all range of flex cable installs.
Mm-hmm. Just in terms of, anything from like HDMI stuff to any type of other audio video related things to ODEs I'm thinking of. I'm just thinking of like all the stuff that have really used flex cables like that.
The PS2 Slim had that flex cable for an external hard drive, right?
Yes. Yeah, it was certain models, I think earlier models of the PS2 Slim, you could essentially wire up a flex cable and do some other things, and then you could essentially re-enable the IDE port that was on those earlier versions, and then you could kind of externalize it, so you could have a internal hard drive capability on a Slim with an external drive.
That's kind of what I'm talking about. It's like these crazy flex cables. This, out of all the flex cables I've worked with, this is a lot more simple because it's only like 3 rows of pins. Any feedback we can get for people who install these things to make it easier for them in the future is important.
For sure. And it's going to be open source from what I'm seeing too as well, right? So people can always contribute to it.
Yes. So Risey has everything available now on his GitHub. Like his current source is there. His board files. I don't think his Gerbers are there. I'd have to look. They might be. But it's all available now. Like where I started from, everything is available on his GitHub.
All right.
But I haven't released any file. I've given people the Gerbers to go and assemble their own for the sake of I can't afford to go buy boards for everyone and ship them out to everyone.
Sure.
And it's people that I trust who understand that what you're buying is something that could amount to a brick. That could amount to literally nothing.
Yes.
It's just we're developing this. So I've a lot of people requesting, hey, can I just get a test board from you? Can I get this from you? I just want this. I just want that. It's like, well, I don't want to start handing out boards for the sake of, 2 reasons. One is if I send out, let's say, the flex cable Gerber file, somebody starts ordering 50 of those and handing those out, well, that's an out-of-date flex cable that could be missing a feature or not do signaling right for a certain, the clock line or something.
Sure. So
getting those out early is going to be detrimental to the community in my opinion. But I have handed out boards to people who understand, hey, I'm throwing away my money. I might get something working, I might not, but I'm furthering this project. And I'm very thankful to everyone like Sikta, for example, or DTomcat recently, the creator of
the
PrometheOS SD.
Yeah.
I've got one right here. They are an amazing piece of hardware. If you go through a lot of consoles, I highly recommend getting a PrometheOS SD from him before he open sources it, because he's not making anymore.
Okay, I got you.
I appreciate those guys just feeling willing to throw a bit of money away and helping out. Like I sent Risey boards, and he's populated one, and it's been working, thankfully.
Okay, so good testing so far.
Yeah, there's been a few problems here and there, but everything overall is looking good.
That's awesome.
So we need the community's help with the biggest thing is firmware. And it's not going to be building firmware. It's going to be tweaking and improving his firmware.
Yeah. I think as well too, it'll be nice having that. So there'll be another original Xbox HDMI solution, because I know there's been the other one from, was it? It was from the same company, I want to say, that does like the SD or the GC loader and such. Was it like Black Dog Tech? I want to say, I can't remember the exact company name. But it was teased years ago where there was a HDMI solution for the original Xbox. Although one thing I found interesting on that one was more focused on keeping the analog and then adding digital portions to it. But the teaser photo that was posted at the time, it involved removing the Ethernet port, which I was like, if I have to remove the Ethernet port on an original Xbox in order to install HDMI, I don't want to use that HDMI mod.
Is that PixelFX?
I think it was. I think it's been rolled up in there, and I would hope that there's still a Xbox HDMI like internal solution in development over there, but I haven't heard anything from it in years.
So the Xbox supports something like 157 approximately video modes.
Oh wow, okay.
And a lot of the interlacing isn't done properly. It's not very user friendly on the inside, let's say, the software side of things, firmware side of things. So the fact that we have a working Ryzen firmware now that needs to be improved and built upon, it's a huge stepping ground. Or starting point is a good way to describe it, I would say.
Mm.
So I understand if they don't have, a simple, quick product they just put out this, because it's the fact that both Ryzen and Megahertz independently designed HDMI boards is just mind-blowing how much work and skill went into both of their products, or the project and product, rather.
Yeah, and then I know with when it comes to PixelFX, correct me if I'm wrong, but the last time I had covered them, because I know they had several different products like the N64 HDMI or digital, and the PS1 HDMI, then PS1 digital, just, same product, different name. But I know they've now changed that all to the Retro Gym, where it's essentially going to be the same board across all different consoles. And what changes are the adapters and the flex cables per system.
Neat.
Yeah. So
I get it. That's cool.
In some ways makes it easier for them. They're really just kind of developing like one product and then updating that there. But I think in some ways it's also been... I've seen some things where it's like because they have like the shiny upgrades now. So essentially it's like a software license that you can apply optionally to unlock more stuff on there. And then I think like the PS1 equivalent of the Retro Gym compared to the PS1 digital, there's been some differences that the PS1 digital had that the Retro Gym does not. So it's a little bit of a cluster there.
I respect it. I mean, it's a lot of work. It's not cheap. It's not easy to do. It's, good for them for releasing a cool product. I don't know anything really about PixelFX. Sorry, I just remember the name. So good for them if they're doing a good job with it. That's cool.
Yeah, but it's
one feature. Sorry.
Oh, I was going to say also they're running a business too, so it's understandable they're going to make some more business moves like that. But go ahead. The one feature you're going to talk about.
Oh, there's a few other features. People still want to keep the AV port, like the Xbox AV port, and I kind of get that. So one thing I was looking at was a breakout cable, like a cable that would go from inside like a quick solder board on the motherboard of the AV port that would port out, let you use the AV port externally or use just a breakout box externally.
Yeah,
that will be something I will look at more once OXHD is out the door and people have access to it. And what I expect to happen immediately is any branding or thank you Ryzen or any of that kind of stuff on there to immediately be taken off the board files and be remade in the next creator's image. You know what I mean?
Of course.
So that's one thing I want to look at. And Professor Johnny on the Xbox scene has been done a similar project. I don't know too much about his, but it's worth a look to see what he's doing. And the other one is Foundkey, another Xbox scene member, keeps asking me about putting the HDMI port essentially where the fan goes, like at the back of the fan port.
Okay.
I have some ideas for that, but I haven't, it's something to invest in once I'm done getting this out the door. Yeah. The primary idea was just putting a 20-pin flex cable connector where the HDMI port is now and using like a 15 or 20 centimeter long shielded flex cable go over to that port and use a weird right angle HDMI port that has, a tiny PCB with another 20-pin flex cable to just reroute those HDMI signals that long way across the board and just to see if we can get it working.
Mm-hmm.
It would be, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work, but it's a cool idea to try out,
Hell yeah. No, it's,
So I don't think it'll work, but I want to try.
It sounds like the sky's the limit on this.
I mean, once you have board files, you can kind of do whatever you want if you know Eagle fairly well. And I started in Eagle. That's one of the reasons I'm working on this. Is people who only know KiCad, which to be fair, I need to learn KiCad. But people who only know KiCad don't really go back and work with Eagle.
Mm-hmm.
There's only a handful of us in the Xbox community that still work with Eagle.
So
most surprised these boards are in Eagle.
Well, one thing I'm curious about, I guess, is the question I was having on here. Is it too early to say, or do you know how it will handle, I guess, resolution upscaling and such? If upscaling will be a thing, is it just going to, take 480p, 720p, 1080i and pump it out, or is there going to be any type of upscaling capability that you all are planning on? And if you know, like, the highest resolution, you might be able to take it on.
So there's a couple answers for that. To be absolutely clear, I do not have an HD Plus. I don't have any megahertz products, so I can't really speak from my experience. But what I've been told is that he does the scaling on the GPU, not on the video, the HDMI encoder. And this HDMI encoder does have some ability to pixel repeat, which isn't upscaling, but there is no actual upscaling capability. So there won't be upscaling from 480p to 720p or whatever.
Okay.
And I believe 1080i, the Xbox sends out like the whole pixel bus. It maxes out at 1080i. It's actually like 1080 by 540. So it is interlaced. Like I don't think the Xbox can natively put out 1080p at all. The problem is I'm more of the board guy, and I've been talking with people who are firmware designers and more of the coders, and they understand that part of it better than I do.
Mm-hmm.
But that's kind of the best answer I can give you is okay. No, there won't be native upscaling. I don't think it's possible without using kernel commands to tell the GPU to run at a high resolution, which, I mean, we may have SurBIOS or another BIOS team come along and give us, a forced upscaling BIOS or patches for games or whatever. Sky's the limit kind of in that way, because that stuff already kind of does exist in the community.
Yeah, I know. Even something crazy like the Halo 2 HD patch that just came out. Yeah, it works up to 1080i, but apparently it renders the game internally at 1080p. So if you're, using development tools to pull a screenshot, you can pull a 1080p screenshot from Halo 2 from the original Xbox, but it cannot display in 1080p. It will only display output at 1080i.
It's inside the GPU. It could be rendering at 1080p, but then the pixel bus, it has to drop it down to 1080i.
Exactly.
Yeah, I was never into the multiplayer for Halo 2 all that much, but man, like the campaign, I'll go back regularly today. I'm testing a console. I'm just going to go play some Halo 2 a little bit. So I'm looking forward, and honestly, 720p looks great, but I'm happy just to play 480p in the proper, stretched widescreen or whatever, or 720 by 480 without the anamorphic stretching. Like I'm really excited to play with that patch. Kudos to Grim Doomer for coming up and that can't have been a 5-minute job. I imagine he spent months and months and months on it. So
he did,
and he just did a blog post about it.
He did. Yeah, and it talks about the whole thing where essentially it was a person you mentioned earlier. Kind of the lineage of it was Doom had worked out had really worked on trying to push the original Xbox to its absolute limits and see what it could do, and really do as many upgrades as he could to it, and was essentially creating God boxes, is what they were called. And he kind of posed a challenge to Grim Doomer and said, hey, I would like to see how far you can push Halo 2 on the original Xbox. If you need help with it, I'm willing to send you over a God box for free. I'll do the hardware work, you send over, you do the software work on Halo 2 and see what's up. And that's what we've gotten so far.
Amazing. Those guys are great. It's nice to see people just doing cool stuff because they love it.
Yeah.
A lot of the projects I work on, like the camera thing, was just, this is so interesting. I want to do it. I want to try it and find out what happens. That happens like Team Resurgent, right? Like they're building PrometheOS and everything else they're working on is just, it's mind blowing. You have a menu that loads up on the Xbox before the Xbox boots, or before it boots into the system. That you can have like a not just a GUI, but like a moving background.
Yeah, kind of.
It looks so cool.
Like, and I guess the only other time I've really seen that has been the X3. It's not the X3 control panel, but really like the X3 like recovery service that the chip has itself, where you can get into that recovery menu. You know what I mean?
I've never had an X3. I didn't get into mod chips until about 3 or 4 years ago.
Oh, okay. I plugged myself a little bit, but I did like a whole video going into the X3 and kind of went through. I think X3 Config Live. That's, if you've ever heard of that, that's like one of the big things, because it's a whole OS and menu system for the console. It's like for the chip itself that runs on it, that is independent of the BIOS on the chip.
Very cool. Well, that actually leads me to a question for you. I just thought of now was, couple of years ago at a local game swap near Toronto, I saw a Crystal Xbox with an X3 in it, with like the cheaper front panel, like the little switch box, not the whole front panel.
Yeah,
125 Canadian, and I didn't buy it.
Oh wow!
Like today, I could sell that Crystal Xbox for twice that, and then keep this X3 for myself. And just be. You know what I mean? Like,
I was going to say, quite literally, if you just ripped out the X3 and sold that as is, you would have profited off of that alone.
I wanted the X3 to check out. I didn't think, it's too expensive. It's not worth my time. So my question to you is, what's a really cool piece of hardware you saw that you regret not buying?
Oh my God, that's a good question. Wow. I really have to think on that. Like, I'm wondering if it might be like a Steel Battalion controller, or even if it's not hardware, it might be a game or something. But I feel like there's been a few consoles. I think maybe one of them, if I could just pick one right now, probably Steel Battalion controllers, not because like rarity or anything, but when Steel Battalion first came out, I was a child. I didn't have the space for it. I didn't have the money for it. Of course, there was no way I was going to be able to, convince my parents to buy it for me, or let alone rent it. There was even like a standalone, there was a local rental shop that you had to pay a deposit on it, but you could rent one of those, like the game with the controller and everything. Then I never really saw it around all too many times. And then I think the closest I ever got to pulling the trigger was there was a game shop in my town where I grew up in, where years ago they were closing, and I went there, and one of the things they had was the Steel Battalion controller, and I asked how much it was, and they said, well, we don't have the game. And I'm like, oh, that's fine. I mean, the game I can get, that's okay, but I just care about the controller. So it was the controller and the pedals, and I can't remember how much it was. I want to say it was maybe like $150, something like that. And at the time, I'm just like, I'm in a tiny apartment. I don't have anywhere I could properly store this thing. I kind of have a proper play area, but it's more just, I don't have it. It's at the point now, I have the money, but I don't have the storage space for it. And if I put the money down at the time, I was like, a little too rich for my blood. It's fine. And then I turned it away, didn't buy it. But it's one of those things, I haven't priced it out now, but I'm a little afraid to, because it just seems like it's only appreciating in value. It's not going down.
I mean, if you buy it on eBay, you're going to pay close to $500, maybe $300 if you're lucky.
Oh,
but you can find it locally for like $200 or less. Actually, near where I live, near Toronto, there are a couple for about $200.
Okay. The next thing,
not that bad, but I mean, it's an acquired taste for sure. Right?
Yeah. The problem is, I just think now, even like not only the price hurts a little bit, but then I just think, I'm like, where am I going to put it?
Am I going to use it more than once?
Exactly. Am I really going to use the thing? Like, where am I going to put this thing? Because if I'm just going to throw it in storage, it's not going to be very respectful to that. And then, if I pull it out, it's a whole big system. And then you can't just like have someone play it for 5 minutes or something. And also it's too big where I can't really put it on my shelves. Like in my game room, I have, a bunch of shelves for my games and stuff. And then up at the top, I have, like collector's items and pieces and like some cool consoles and things that are on display. But it's way too big for that. So that's why now it's just at the point where it's like, I could drop the money on it, but I really don't want to. And then like, I do have the space for it, but do I really want to use that space for a Steel Battalion controller? So it's kind of just a lot of that there, but that's probably the most recent, or maybe the biggest thing, literally and physically, like literally and figuratively, that I've kind of had a regret on. What about yourself though?
I just mentioned it. That was the X3.
Your X3 crystal system. Yeah.
Yeah, that would have been cool to pick up. Actually, a couple of years ago, I did pick up 2 crystals for $20 each because they were dead. I mean,
nice.
And like you said, with the Xbox, they're pretty modular. They're pretty easy to fix. I got them both working, within an hour or two.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, when it comes to that, like, there's been times. I think one of the last original Xboxes I picked up, I was at a thrift shop and it was cheap enough, and they didn't have a TV nearby. But they have a policy where they're like, hey, you can use anything in the store to test it. Like, you can't just go like hog wild, but like there's no returns on here. So if you find a piece of electronics, sure, we'll let you hook it up. You can hook it up to a TV, you can test it, what have you. And I really just needed a figure 8 cable. So I found one, I plugged it in, turned it on. The system was booting up, but of course, had the red light flashing because I didn't have AV plugged into it. But it wasn't
orange and yellow, probably.
Orange and yellow, that was it. Yeah, but it wasn't, it wasn't doing anything else. It wasn't rebooting. It wasn't fragging. It wasn't doing any of that. So I was like, this is enough to show me that it's working. Typically, that's what I do. I think like right before pandemic started too, I also bought a PS3 Slim, exact same thing, and I turned it on and it stayed on, and I saw the hard drive indicator was like the hard drive indicator was flashing. I'm like, even though I can't see it, this is enough to show me that it's working.
Very cool.
Yeah, because typically if it's something where like I fire it up and like if I try and essentially if I would have hooked it up and it just like red lighted on me, or if there was another issue, I'd really only buy it if it was like really, really cheap. But if it was like $40-$50, I'm like, nah, I'm good.
Immediate frag, like, oh, this has a mod chip in it that's dead, or the BIOS is corrupt, or whatever.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, that kind of goes back to what I was saying with the camera, where I returned it to my friend who had originally purchased it. Because he's got a better home for it. He's got a big, huge collection, a lot of display cases. He shows off stuff, and not in the sense of saying, hey, look what I have. It's like, hey, like, I'll share the history of this stuff with you, or, we can talk about these cool items.
Mm-hmm.
So it kind of goes back to that, like with the Battalion controller of, what am I going to do with it? Like, well, send it to a good home,
Mm-hmm. I got you. I have a question for you on that then. I guess, what would be your favorite collector's piece that you would show people or tell people about if they are, coming by your place? There's like, hey, what's all this gaming stuff here? What's something cool?
I should take some photos of my nerd shelves for you, because I have a lot of interesting stuff. And
okay.
Everything I have, it isn't just something I went and bought. Everything's got a story, and it's part of the fun of collecting those things is a story, behind it. Let me look. I've got a rare blue claptrap figure from. I remember my little brother bought it for me. It was really nice of him. I have a warthog that was like some cheap NECA toy that was like thrift store, $2.
Nice.
A friend of mine, because he's super generous, and we were into Star Citizen for a while, he bought me the Star Citizen Constellation figure, like the large, almost foot-long figure. And I don't know how much he spent on it, but it was clearly too much. You're a very generous friend,
Mm-hmm. That's awesome.
I'm trying to look through right now and see what would be the coolest thing. I never thought that I would get a skeleton, like a Japanese Xbox controller.
Yeah.
So I bought the 20th anniversary controller. I love that thing. It's gorgeous. But now I actually have a skeleton controller. So I'm like, oh, what do I do with this thing? But you know what? I think I'll settle on a portal gun.
That's awesome.
A friend of mine bought me the mini portal gun. And I've actually went out as Ratman from the Portal comic.
Okay.
Like before Portal 2, there was a comic that was kind of behind the scenes with a guy named Ratman.
Mm-hmm.
And he wore like the lab coat and all that. So actually I've gone out for Halloween with this little mini portal gun as Ratman.
That's awesome.
There's a favorite. It's the portal gun, probably.
Okay, I see you.
Send you some photos of the shelves, though.
Yes, dude, I'd love to see that. I think my favorite is it's interesting because it took me a bit to realize this, because I was like, like this would not be like the coolest thing that I would really show off. But I've noticed it's a thing that it gets attention and it gets the most reactions in my game room. It is a PS3 that I have. It's not a development system. It's nothing crazy. It doesn't even have a hard drive in it. And it is running on an old stock firmware. But it is a United States Air Force PS3, which was used with Project Condor when you could use other OS. And so the United States Air Force had bought a bunch of PS3s, installed other OS on them, was running Linux, and clustered them together essentially for, I want to say like GPS and GIS imaging and mapping for a big project that they were doing. There was less than 2,000. I think it was exactly like 1,760 PS3s. And then eventually they decommissioned them, and I own one of them.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. But if
is there a story behind how you got it? Like, I mean, maybe not time today, but do you have a cool story about how you found it, or was it just a random find?
Dude, the story, it's incredibly simple. I was on Twitter. Somebody put up a link to it. It was on eBay. That was it. Somebody was selling, somebody somewhere. I don't remember if it was like Georgia or what. Georgia in the US, but like somebody just had like 50 or 60 of them, and they were just selling them, and they're just like, yeah, PS3, it has these weird stickers on it. And I think I paid $56 for it, US.
Wow.
Yeah. So
that's pretty cool.
And it's one of those things where it's like, if you look at it, it's like, well, there's nothing of value here because it is just a old fat PS3. It's not a backwards compatible one. It's a retail system. Doesn't have a hard drive. The only thing really desirable on it is it's running a low firmware, low enough that you don't have to worry about, like, you can get other OS on there. You can jailbreak it without patching it or updating it or anything. But it's the story behind it and the way it looks too, because it has all these like decommissioned stickers on it. And it also has some stickers from when it was in the cluster to specifically identify it. So on purpose, I haven't done anything to try and restore and clean it up. Inside of it too, because I made a video about it, but like on the inside, because it was in a data center for years, it was incredibly clean on the inside. Like, I'd be surprised if there was like 2 specks of dust in there. And then I did test it to try a game on. I think I played Heavenly Sword. I just popped it in to make sure it boot. And it was funny because I had this surreal moment. Like, when I tried, I'm like, I'm making sure the Blu-ray drive works, but I have a feeling this is the first time a game has ever been played on this system.
Probably.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah. So see, it's cool because it's like there's people who are like plugged in the know, such as you, who are impressed with it. And there's people who they visit, they're not into video games at all. And when they hear about it, they're like, that is so cool. So the reaction is still the same across the board. But, I can show them like a rare edition of a game, or, if I had like a development kit, show them, and people are like, oh, that's neat. All right. That's nice.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
That's good history for it too.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I had one more question for you. And it was like the existential question that a friend of mine always asks random people.
Oh, sure.
And it's, if you had one song, just one song you could listen to for the rest of your life or the rest of eternity or whatever, what would it be?
Ooh. Oh my God, that's a good one too. You're coming with these heavy hitting questions like right at the end here. I have much easier questions for you. Maybe because it ended up changing so much for me in terms of consumption. I'd say of like consumption of music, like things that I've been a fan of, even just like visiting places, dressing up, things like that. Deadbeat Valentine by Nothing Nowhere.
I'm gonna write that down and listen to it once we're done.
Hell yeah. Yeah, no, it was my whole thing with Nothing Nowhere was he's my, at this point, like my all-time favorite solo artist. And that's not even like my favorite song. I'm not really sure if I even have one, but it was in 2016 and I was on YouTube browsing and everything. And there
you go.
Oh, sorry about that. Here we go. All right. I blipped right there. My apologies. I saw there was an update on Discord. I wasn't thinking. I was like, oh, let me install the update.
Oops.
I had the biggest brain fart there. Either way.
It happens. Don't stress it.
Yeah. At least it's at the end here. But either way, what happened with Nothing Nowhere was I was browsing on YouTube and I saw a thumbnail, I'm pretty sure, for his song Let Down. And it seemed like it was just at the right time. It's like this song, like the artist name, the song name, the thumbnail, it all is kind of just speaking to me. And I remember I watched that video, I heard the song, and I was just so mesmerized and so touched by the song and absolutely loved it. And then autoplay kicked in and it played his next song, which was Deadbeat Valentine. And that it's one of those moments where it's like, yeah, this made me an instant fan, like instant fan for life right there, just from that song. And it influenced so much in my life after that.
Another cool piece of history on you.
I guess so. What about, what's your song equivalent of that?
Well, the quick thing is the friend who always asks this, he always forgets that he asks me it. And he always like comes up, before I can finish my answer, he comes up with Jukebox Hero from Foreigner, which I respect. It's a hell of a song. Mine is the Rolling Stones, "Give Me Shelter." So it was like one of the last songs that was like not produced at all. It was just like wrung out as hard as they could and very natural in the studio.
Mm-hmm.
Felt very real, whereas today you don't hear voices cracking or anything anymore. Or back then, like I can't remember the singer's name. She's amazing. Her voice cracks a couple times because she really pushes it.
Yep.
And it's just a song that gets me every time, you know?
I got you. I totally get that. I had a discussion with that with a couple people recently with another Nothing Nowhere song. It's one of his songs. It's not necessarily like a deep cut, but it's one of his lesser known ones because it was released as a single, but very early on. He never plays it live because I think it's just he's an emo artist and he very much embodies that. But he has said before, he's like, he only really plays live the songs that he has fun playing. And this other song he has called Parking Lot, it's one of my favorites from him. And part of it is it's such like a raw and emotional song like that where it's not too heavily produced. You can tell it's just in his basement. The quality itself is nice, but essentially like the lyrics are really simple where he essentially says that he had a panic attack in someone's dorm room and he was really vulnerable with this person and they just told him to grow up, and now he's alone crying in a parking lot in his car. And you could just hear like the shakiness in his voice. You can like hear how the song is constructed, but like at the end he's screaming out the lyrics and he just has this one scream that is just so visceral that you can just feel the pain emanating off it right there. And like I remember a few nights ago, like I was talking to my girlfriend about this and I played the song for her, and when it got to that part she like cringed a little bit from it, just from like it was that raw. Like you could feel like that was the part right there. It was like that must have been really hard to get through. So I love stuff like that at that deep level.
Yeah, it goes back to the whole thing of like natural music, just music in its purest form without being overproduced, right?
Exactly. Yep.
It's really cool. I've written at least 2 of those down. I'll have to ask you later for the one that we haven't missed in the middle.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I think no, I don't know if I don't know if we missed anything. I think it was just probably Debbie Valentine, Let Down, and then Parking Lot. That was it.
Let Down?
Yes, yeah, that was the first song I heard from him. Yeah, but I was saying like if I could listen to one the rest of my life, probably Debbie Valentine.
Got it.
Yeah. But
so was that brought to us by NordVPN?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Now I have one question for you as we kind of intro this out, or outro this here. Intro this out, I guess you could say either way. But I do ask this with people. What games are you currently playing, if anything?
I had I listened to a lot of music on like YouTube or whatever, and I had just a feeling I wanted to listen to some of the synthwave stuff from Far Cry 3 Blood Dragon. So I went and started playing that recently. I'm almost done.
Okay.
And my brother and I recently picked up Diablo 2 Resurrected because it was very cheap, and Bobby Kotick has no longer at Activision.
True. All right.
So Diablo 2 Resurrected I'm going to be getting into, and I still have to finish off Far Cry 3 Blood Dragon. Other than that, I don't get to game a whole lot anymore just because of all the projects I'm trying to get through right now.
Mm. That's exactly why I asked like if you're playing anything, because as you know, like when you really get deep into console modding, and like especially where you're like heading projects and stuff, or like deeply working on them and doing a lot of testing, it's like, well, the actual modding itself becomes the game.
Well, if you look at, for example, the iToy guide on console mods, there's a guide of converting your Xbox or your PS2 iToy into an Xbox camera. That's a 10-minute guide, for you to go through. And you know how this is. You're a YouTuber. That guide took me several hours to put together to make it as readable as possible. And I keep hearing this saying about YouTube that for every minute of good video with B-roll and everything is about an hour of editing. So that becomes the game, right? That's the real work, is taking the time to build something up so other people can do it quickly or enjoy it quickly.
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah. And I think it can depend on how long it is for me, but I think The way I generally boil it down to people is not necessarily a time, but I'm like, yeah, just because a video is 10 minutes, that video took a lot more than 10 minutes to produce. Like there are some videos where it's like, even like the most basic one where you're stopping and starting the recording and all that, you still got to upload tag and all that. So it's like, yeah, again, even a 10-minute video, you might spend 12 minutes on it at minimum, but just because it's 10 minutes doesn't mean you spent only 10 minutes on it.
When Insignia was working on Halo 2, when they announced it, I was trying to get a bunch of videos out to help them get the hype up, and I gave a bunch to Billy, who posted them on their YouTube channel. But I was, recording them while playing them and testing and stuff, which testing isn't the glorious thing people think it is.
No,
it's a lot of work. Yeah, it's fun. You get to play games early, but you're more of just bouncing in menus left, right, and center, then doing a quick game, then back to the menus. But then after that, it's like cropping and cutting the end of the beginning and end off of a video, upscaling it, and all that. Like it's. You get 3 or 4 hours of work or time out of a 5-minute video.
Yeah.
So that definitely becomes a big part of it, is building something and then seeing someone else use it and say, wow, that was really easy. Thanks. Like that. It's also nice when when you see someone who goes and does that and doesn't know it was you and just raving about how great it was. And you're like, I feel great now.
It's like, hey, I did that here. I'm part of that. Awesome.
I'd probably say that too much. Yeah, I helped contribute to that, or I built that. But at the same time, I like seeing and hearing people just enjoying something that I worked on without necessarily going, "Hey, thanks for working on it." It's just a matter of I did a good job for them, and they're appreciating it. Like them talking about it is showing how much that my work has paid off, at least for them.
Heck yeah!
Can I actually do a shout out? This is something that hasn't got enough attention.
Go ahead.
There's a gentleman named Anthony on YouTube who's done a really cool documentary. I believe it's called Xbox History and the Fans Who Saved It. I find it.
Okay.
Saved it.
I feel like I've heard that title before. I haven't watched it, though.
The Xbox, Its Life, and the Fans That Saved It. It was June 7th, 2022. It only has 2,252 views, which seems ridiculously low to me. And I'm a little biased because I'm in part of the documentary, but so is Crunchbite and Billy from Insignia and Demon, who until Insignia came out was the de facto lead of the original Xbox online community.
Yeah.
And it was there too. And a bunch of us who kind of contributed to keeping the scene alive over the years, and only a very small part of that huge community. He's got a 48-minute documentary about the Xbox Live shutting down and the future of it before Insignia launched. I hype checking out this documentary. Even if you don't care about the interviews, the rest of the documentary is extremely compelling. He's a great video maker. It's Anthony S on YouTube. I can give the link for.
Yeah, if you could link that to me, because I would love to watch that.
Thanks.
Yeah. Oh yeah, no, I've definitely seen this thumbnail, but I just haven't watched it because it's like I probably have it on my watch later, and my watch later is always growing.
From 2 years ago, right?
Dude, that's how it is. Some people are just like, yeah, this was uploaded 2-3 years ago. I'm like, yeah, yep.
Oh, I know how it is too, man. I've got a bunch of videos of tutorials and stuff I want to work on that I've just, that keeps sitting on the back burner and then move to the back burner again and again. I'm completely with you.
Oh, I got that exact same thing, of course. Yeah. I was going to say the games I've been playing here, I haven't touched up on Final Fantasy in a minute, but recently a couple of small games was girlfriend and I ended up playing through. I might have talked about this last episode, but we played through Donut County together. And then another game, which we actually started this a while ago, like years ago, and then we never finished it, so we just started a new save because it's small enough. Untitled Geese Game, which is technically different from Untitled Goose Game, because if you get Untitled Goose Game with the latest patch, there is a local 2-player option, and when you load in a second goose, it changes it to Untitled Geese Game, so we were able to finish that. And it was hilarious, because, like, if you can believe it, it's actually harder with 2 players.
I've got a few games like that for NES where my wife and I will get together to play an NES game, and it's just, it's like, okay, let's just, she is better than me at all these old platformers and stuff. So
okay.
I'll hold my controller down and she'll go do it by herself, and I'll hop back in when it's easier. That's really cool though.
I had a friend like that where she's not into games at all, but the newer the game, the more advanced it is, the worse she is. Like, you put Grand Theft Auto 5 in front of her, she's gonna fumble. But the more basic the game is, like tennis on the Nintendo, for example, she will absolutely kill you in that game. And it's not that she has experience before or anything. It's just, it seems like the simpler the game, the better she's going to be at it. But no, with Untitled Goose Game, it was funny because with this, it doesn't split the screen at all. You have two geese on one screen. Yeah. And it's kind of like Fable 3. It's like Fable 2. If you ever played multiplayer or like co-op on Halo, not Halo, on Fable 2. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Lego Star Wars.
Oh, Lego Star Wars as well, too, where there's no split screen. You have to share the screen. So, for example, like when one goose is being pulled or pushed by someone into another area, the other goose on the opposite side of the screen is going to get pulled back with them. And that's what makes it harder. So it's not even a skill issue. It's like, no, the game is just harder when you have a second person in there.
I can't play games like that with my wife because she's always going and doing her own thing while I'm trying to complete whatever's going on. So I'll always get knocked off a cliff, or like if we're playing Mario 2-player at the same time, like whatever Mario game, she'll like on the Wii or Wii U, Switch, whatever, she'll just like take okay, I'm small, she's big and has a fire flower, and then a leaf comes up and she'll take the leaf, and I'm like, I really needed that, you know. So we don't get to play those too much. We do play some games together, but Minecraft is a big one. She likes Minecraft once in a while.
That's great.
I host servers for her.
I can't do the Minecraft thing. It puts me to sleep.
That's fair.
Yeah.
It's, sometimes if I want to sit and game, and I don't want to like go to bed, but I want to relax, I'll just sit and mine in Minecraft for a little bit. It hasn't been for a hot minute, but you know, once in a while, it's very relaxing and lethargic.
I got you. Yeah,
cathartic. Sorry, was the right term.
For me, I just can't do the super open-ended games like that. But even quite literally, it's just like the soundtrack and then what's going on. Since I'm just not super interested, I have fallen asleep playing Minecraft before. I'm just like, I can't do this game.
That's fair. I mean, you play what you like and you enjoy what you like. Like nobody should be telling anybody you should play this because I think it's better, or it's not as. You know what I mean? Like people just tell you what to play, what to enjoy. It's like, no, man, you play what you like, you enjoy what you like, and don't let anybody tell you different. You know?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Right on. Well, for our last thing here, it's been really awesome. It's been a blast talking with you, getting all this out there, doing this episode, but kind of winding down here. Want to do the little bit of outro and everything, close us up, and typically to see if people have made it to the end of this episode, I'm at least going to be looking in the comments section of the video uploads, but I like to pick a keyword or a key phrase. So if you use a keyword or a key phrase in your comment, we'll know that you made it to the end. So to my guest here, Harcroft, what keyword or key phrase should people use?
So to be clear, I do go to the end of your videos, and I always avoid using those just so you don't think I make it to the end of your videos. I'm going to say cattywampus.
Cattywampus?
Yeah, it's a real word. You can look it up.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll go with that then. If you use the word cattywampus in your comment on the video upload, we'll know that you've made it to the end of this episode. But either way, I think we're pretty good at this point. That's been about it for this episode of Mario's Minute. Thank you so much for listening and watching, everyone. And Harcroft, thank you very much for coming on here. It's been a blast.
Thank you very much for just hanging out and chatting. I really enjoyed it.
Of course, it's been fun. Either way, this is Mr. Mario signing off. Thank you all for listening and watching, everyone. And until next month.